evening. If we could please come to order. It's 7 o'clock, so it's time to begin the June 4th, 2018 meeting of the Alamance County Board of Commissioners. Thank you all for coming tonight, and all 5 commissioners are here and present. I have the invocation tonight, and we've done a couple of different things through this year, which when it was Mr. Sutton's turn to do the invocation, he shared, instead of having a prayer, he shared some thoughts, some things that were on his heart, which I thought was very interesting and appropriate. And then when it was Mr. Bird's turn, he suggested a moment of silence. So I wanted to do something a little different tonight for our invocation. I have here my personal Bible. The scripture is ancient, and it is literature. It's been looked to for centuries for guidance and for just its beauty. And so for the invocation tonight, I wanted to share with you all Psalm 33. Shout for joy before the Lord, you who are righteous. Praise comes well from the upright. Give thanks to the Lord on the harp. Sing him psalms to the 10-stringed lute. Sing to him a new song. Strike up with all your art and shout in triumph. The word of the Lord holds true, and all his work endures. The Lord loves righteousness and justice. His love unfailing fills the earth. The Lord's word made the heavens. All the hosts of heaven was made at his command. He gathered the sea like water in a goat's skin. He laid up the deep in his store chambers. Let the whole world fear the Lord, and all men on earth stand in awe of him. For he spoke, and it was. He commanded, and it stood firm. The Lord brings the plans of nations to nothing. He frustrates the counsel of the peoples. But the Lord's own plans shall stand forever, and his counsel endure for all generations. Happy is the nation whose God is the Lord, the people he has chosen for his own possession. The Lord looks out from heaven. He sees the whole race of men. He surveys from his dwelling place all the inhabitants of the earth. It is he who fashions the hearts of all men alike, who discerns all that they do. A king is not saved by a great army, nor a warrior delivered by great strength. A man cannot trust his horse to save him, nor can it deliver him for all its strength. The Lord's eyes are turned towards those who fear him, towards those who hope for his unfailing love to deliver them from death, to keep them alive in famine. We have waited eagerly for the Lord. He is our help and our shield, for in him our hearts are glad, because we have trusted in his holy name. Let thy unfailing love, O Lord, rest upon us as we have put our hope in thee. So if you would now please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have a place on our agenda for public speakers. This would be for any public speakers who do not want to speak tonight about the budget. We're having the public hearing on the proposed budget for fiscal year 2018-2019. That will be later on in our agenda. This time in our agenda is set aside for public speakers who wish to address the board about things other than that upcoming public meeting. I don't think we have anybody who has signed up for something other than for the budget, but if there is anybody who wishes to be heard on something else, then this would be the time to come forward. And go ahead, please say your name.
My name is Patsy Simpson. Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
Ms. Simpson, you'll have 3 minutes. The public comment time, public speaker time, this time you have 3 minutes. The public hearing is 5 minutes, so just to clarify that.
Okay. When I walked in tonight, of course, all of the security on the outside mentioned the fact that you could not bring signs. This is not specifically in regards to the budget hearing. However, I was informed that the county commissioners had a rule stating that signs are not allowed at their meetings. I would like to express that I feel like that's a violation of First Amendment right for individuals to be able to speak. As a matter of fact, at one of your meetings, I even wrote a sign and held it up very high so that people could see it. And no one said anything to me about that. So I feel tonight, knowing that you have all these educators here in the public who wanted to strongly express their feelings to you, not only by addressing you, but also by carrying signs to demonstrate how they feel about the budget. And I just believe, once again, that you as an elected officials should be willing to hear from the citizens of Alamance County, whether that be vocal or whether that be through signs. So I would like for you to reconsider that if, in fact, there is a written policy in regards to signs at public meetings. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, this is a great opportunity to review some rules that we have been in the custom and habit of reviewing before each meeting. We have our rules of procedure for the Alamance County Board of County Commissioners available to be seen on our website, as well as our public comment policy that was adopted in September of 2014. I guess before I launch into that, I should ask, is there anybody else present who wants to be heard on a matter for the public speakers? Seeing none, I should ask the other members of the board if they have a response themselves
I do.
to Mr. Lashley.
I have a response. Bob Byrd and Eddie Boswell are planning to vote to raise our county taxes tonight. With so many of our elderly homeowners living on fixed incomes, that means Social Security, many of those homeowners will be forced to decide whether they will have enough money left over after paying their taxes to buy real food, but they may be forced to eat dog food. So I think the county should go out on a limb and buy the can openers for all those people.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lashley. I just note for one thing that with your comments that we're not going to vote on the budget tonight. The vote on the budget is going to be June 18th. I think that we're going to vote tonight, and that's
I thought we were voting tonight.
technically in error. We're going to vote on the 18th. Is there anybody else on the board who wishes to make a response to what Ms. Simpson said?
I'll save my response to Mr. Lashley till the end of the meeting.
I'm not sure. Is that a rule that we can't have signs?
I have the stuff here. I have a response of my own. Okay, so the public comment policy and the rules that were adopted, the rules of procedure for the Alamance County Board of Commissioners, and a lot of the rules of procedure that we adopted as a board are codified or come from statutes. I am not certain offhand, off the top of my head, which things are from statutes, which statutes they're from, or whether or not it's some custom that was established and then codified in this. Okay, so Section 7, let's see, we have Roman numeral 6, Section 7, decorum of audience. In order to efficiently transact public business, it is necessary that members of the audience demonstrate an appropriate decorum and respect for the board and speakers. To this end, audience members shall conduct themselves as follows. Sub A, audience members shall refrain from making unsolicited comments during the meeting. Sub B, during speakers from the floor or debate by the board, audience members shall refrain from conduct which disrupts the proceeding. This conduct may include, but is not limited to, cheers, hissing, booing, clapping, cursing, or any other conduct which disturbs the proceedings. Sub C, audience members shall refrain from displaying signage that obstructs the view of others in attendance or presents a safety hazard. Sub D, audience members shall silence all cell phones and other electronic devices while attending the meeting. So as chair, my response to the comment would be that the law enforcement officers have the responsibility, and they have the responsibility to enforce these rules, and they have the discretion to decide how they shall be enforced as long as they're enforced in a content-neutral way. So law enforcement will not be able to pick and choose, okay, I like this sign, I don't like that sign, and if that happened tonight, that was wrong. But I don't hear that that had happened, but it is the law enforcement officers' purview. It is their duty to make decisions about what obstructs the view of others in attendance or presents a safety hazard. So that's the thing about the signs. Now, for the public comment policy, well, this is really, it pertains mostly to the public comment period, which is now passed. So I will emphasize, though, for those of us who are gathered, folks, when we applaud for things that you hear or you like, that is, for one, that's against our rules. We ask that you not do that. I was at the school board's meeting last week, and there were public speakers there, and they made their presentation, and the audience did not clap, because I'm pretty sure that the school board has a similar rule or policy. We ask that you not applaud because for a lot of different reasons. I think one of the most practical reasons is that it tends to make the meeting go longer, if you will. When we had the hearing on the bond, we had 38 public speakers. And if we have 30 seconds between each speaker for applause, then that adds another, 20 minutes to the length of our meeting. And, if y'all want to, there are a lot of reasons for us to ask you please not to applaud. That is one, out of courtesy and respect to other people and to their time. Another is that, I do have this one written down, North Carolina General Statute 143-318.17, disruptions of official meetings. A person who willfully interrupts, disturbs, or disrupts an official meeting and who, upon being directed to leave the meeting by the presiding officer, willfully refuses to leave the meeting is guilty of a Class 2 misdemeanor. Well, that's not what we're talking about. So hopefully, Lord forbid, that we end up going down that rabbit trail. But we do ask you, please don't applaud between speakers, and we will get to more of that when we get to the public hearing, and I will tell the audience how we would like for you to approach the microphones and how we can go with fluidity and be able to have everyone treated with respect and have their fair say and still be able to get out of here before midnight. So thank you very much. All right, so next on our agenda is approval of the agenda. If all the commissioners have had an opportunity to review the agenda, and there are no questions or concerns about it.
Make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Next, we have the consent agenda. Just 2 items on the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you, gentlemen. Is there any other discussion about the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. All right. We do have some other business this evening. Mr. Hill, our solid waste director, has some franchise agreements for us to discuss.
Commissioners. So in front of you is an ordinance to ask your okay with extending the existing franchise agreements we have with Republic Services and Waste Industries for both general garbage pickup and recycles. As you may know, Republic has approximately half of the county in the northeast and the northwest, and Waste Industries supplies service to the southern part of the county. The existing agreements expire June 30th of this year. We're asking for a 6-month extension to carry us through the end of the year. The purpose of the extension has to do with several items. For those of you who may keep up with it, there's a lot of turmoil right now in the recycle business due to the China sword changes, which in essence have eliminated an enormous amount of recycled product that leaves our shores and goes to China. They were working on a contamination rate of some 3%. They've now narrowed that to 0.5, which has caused an enormous problem, especially on the West Coast, but it's catching up with us. We now have some of our vendors asking for relief on corrugated cardboard because we have a local ordinance that keeps it out of our landfill. So that, in conjunction with changes that the General Assembly made with House Bill 56, which affects and diminishes the county's ability to regulate flow in the county. Working with Clyde and Brian, we've agreed that we need a little more time to figure out where this market is going, to rewrite these franchise agreements that is more public sensitive, takes advantage of some of the technology changes in transportation, and gives us a few months to see what goes on with this whole recycle mess we've got to deal with. So that's pretty much the request tonight.
Can I ask a question? So I've gotten, I think my fellow commissioners have too, a lot of complaints about Republic. And I was just curious, do we have are there other optional vendors out there that we could be considering? And have those issues been resolved? My sense is that they haven't totally been resolved.
When we rewrite the franchise agreement, we'll obviously have to send it out for bid, and then any public or private company can bid on that. One of the big issues has to do with if you take one of the service areas, say that Republic has now, which is approximately half the county, to start over, someone has to bid on that, so it's price sensitive. They then have to line up labor and equipment, and then they have to notify all those citizens, and those citizens have to now sign up for some new franchise agreement pricing. And although that may be where we go, that's a heck of a lot of work on a lot of people. But it may be something we have no choice. I know Republic has not only struggled in Alamance County, they have struggled mightily in Guilford County.
Well, that makes my point even stronger, I think. I hate that we would consider entering into another agreement. I mean, I understand the temporary nature of this one, but on a more long-term basis, out of convenience, as opposed to really doing an agreement because of quality.
I certainly have no problem assuming that we bid them.
I know I've had numerous emails from people in the northern part of the county out near Altamont that they're leaving it 2 and 3 days on the road.
Republic has noted that volume has gotten them, an increase in volume. I think more in Guilford than in Alamance, but they were sharing routes. We pressed for them to change those routes. They did back in March. So the routes they're running now are sensitive just to Alamance County instead of being spread between the two counties. They also got hit with some new DOT regulations restricting how many hours a driver can drive. None of that's good excuses. It's just a matter of what Waste Industries also had to deal with.
Do we have access to their financial records?
For a public company, I would assume yes.
Well, we can't afford to just keep letting them operate as usual.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see their financials just to see if they're, yeah, I mean, if you're making a lot of money, they ought to be giving a lot of service. In all honesty, I don't see it.
One of the things I'd comment, Commissioner, not to elongate the conversation, but this whole recycle market is becoming very, very complex. Matter of fact, Waste Industries is here tonight just to be here in presence in case there's questions. No matter what we do, whether we extend, multiple years with the vendors we have or rebid it, I think we all had to be prepared for something of a price shock because the commodity market has fallen completely out of touch of reality. Corrugated cardboard, something that we were being paid $220 a ton a year ago. I think the last bid we got was $60. A lot of the other recyclable products we deal with, we can't give away. We actually have to pay to send them to a rework facility. So it's an upside-down market.
So I don't like the idea about not doing recycling because it's not as cost-effective. I mean, I'm thinking in terms of sustainability. I think we have a duty to our citizens to maintain good recycling just because it's the environmentally good thing to do. And then you mentioned the recycling, but the complaints that I think that I've gotten from Republic wasn't about recycling, it was about the regular trash.
We've had both, although trash was more.
And I'm wondering if, I don't think that I've heard any complaints about Waste Industries service, and is that possible they could do the whole county?
Very minimal, and that certainly is an option to have them bid. Another thing we were looking at is the demographics of the county. Since these franchises were originated 25 years ago, there's been a lot of change in the Mebane area, some out in West Burlington. So the demographics of the county has changed, and Bruce and his group have helped us take a look at census data to see if there's a better way to divvy up the county, including 100% one company. Now, Waste Industries is now doing all of the recycle pickup for the municipalities. They have 100% of that business. So we're only talking franchise, non-municipal areas, but that's certainly an option.
Where does Republic take theirs?
To what they call a MRF, a materials reworks facility in Greensboro that they own. Waste Industries also utilizes that, but obviously at a higher price.
Do we have the legal authority to penalize them? Do we have a legal authority to penalize them if we feel the contract's not being met?
Well, the ultimate penalty is not renewing the franchise. But we find ourselves in a position tonight where we'll run out June 30th, and we have to have yet another meeting where we approve it, actually approve it twice. So we're really up against the wall here. And on top of all that, the Chinese now, cut the market off. This stuff is stacking up everywhere. So it's a real big problem. This gives us enough time to work with folks, try to work it out. Certainly, no vendor. There's a lot of pressure, commissioners, on what we do with recycles. Again, the market has completely fallen out. Waste Industries are telling me they're losing tens of thousands of dollars a year just picking up recyclables with the municipalities. And something has to change. So that's why I'm saying we've all got to start thinking if we're going to continue these programs, and we all want to because it keeps the life of our landfill up, there's going to be a cost to it. And I know that's a separate issue than the problems with pickup, but it is part of the problem.
So this will extend it 6 months. And
It
then
just gives us 6 months to see where we want to go, where this market's going to go with China. Take a look at how we rewrite these franchise agreements. What are the problems from the public sector? In the past, we've asked our vendors to sign 3-year commitments. Well, with the market being so volatile, when you ask a company to stretch out there for 3 years, well, they've got to cover their risk. So that, in essence, drives cost up. So perhaps we go with 1-year extensions tied to CIP index, things like that, that allows us to better modulate the actual cost of this process.
I would suggest that in the 6 months, we definitely look to restructure what we're doing.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you. Let me just mention that Mr. Albright did mention something very important, that these items are going to reappear on the June 18th agenda because they do have to be read twice. And we need, if you look at your agenda, you see that it's listed on there 4 times, and we do need 4 separate votes. And so the first motion that we would be seeking would be for the franchise agreement with Waste Industries to collect, transport, and dispose of the household garbage, that would, a motion for approval of that.
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor? Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? So the second motion would be, we would be seeking is a motion to approve the franchise agreement with Waste Industries LLC to collect and transport recyclable materials.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion about that item? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? The third item is the franchise agreement with Republic Services of North Carolina, LLC, to collect and transport recyclable materials. A motion to approve that.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, please, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the final one, franchise agreement with Republic Services of North Carolina, LLC, to collect, transport, and dispose of household garbage.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Hill. we'll see you next meeting.
Did we get a copy of the franchise agreement that you talked about? Yeah, that's fine. And I still want to see the financials. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hill. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the public hearing for the proposed budget for fiscal year 2018-2019. Before I seek a motion to open the public hearing, I would like to talk a little bit about how we would like to proceed with this. I have a list of speakers here, people who submitted their names in advance, and so we'll start with them. And I'll call two names. This will be microphone A, this will be microphone B. I'll ask the first speaker to come to microphone A and the second to come to microphone B. The first speaker will begin to speak. When he is finished, I'll call the third name to come to microphone A, and then the second speaker from microphone B will start. And so that way we can alternate. I will call the name of the next speaker so that person can go ahead and proceed to the front of the auditorium while the person at their microphone is speaking. And that way, hopefully, we can have a good flow of the speakers, and it will proceed smoothly and with regularity. Once I have called all the names of the people who have signed up, then we will open the floor, and people who have not signed up, who wish to be heard, will be able to come to the microphone then. And we'll just count on you all to see that there's nobody at the microphone, and come on up if you feel so led to do. So, do any of the commissioners have any questions about that? Is that clear? Is that?
Yeah, you mentioned, I don't know if you did, so after we go through that list, other people can create them.
Okay, so if that's all clear, then if I could have a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you. All right, so the first speaker is Derek Tang. Mr. Tang, if you would come to this microphone. And the second speaker is John Dooley. Mr. Dooley, if you would come to microphone B. And, please state your name and spell it for our clerk to the board. She keeps the minutes, and it helps her to be able to keep proper minutes that are accurate. And also, we ask that you state your address, please. And each speaker has 5 minutes. Thank you. You may proceed when you're ready, Mr. Tang.
All right. My name is Derek Tang, D-E-R-E-K, T-A-N-G, like the breakfast drink. I live in 2703 May Drive in Burlington. Haley, Mr. Boswell, Mr. Sutton, Mr. Lashley, Mr. Bird. After doing this for a couple of years now, it seems like almost clockwork. June, budget hearing, come on out, say my piece. I've done this a couple of years now, and I'm pretty much, call me cynical, but I'm under a little illusion at this point that a public hearing is going to do anything to sway the minds of anybody in your chairs. Thanks to our democratic process, however, I do intend to get at least my say in. And that is the value that I hold for this system as an immigrant. Okay. Commissioner Lashley, once upon, not too long ago, I think it was just a couple of years ago, you were on record with local media as saying that you were proud to have attended public schools in the area. As a parent with obviously vested interest in our local schools, I say the same thing, that I am proud that my children are going through our local schools. Here's the difference. Your pride may have stemmed from the prestige of the schools in this area. My pride for ABSS stems from its ability to provide a caring academic environment for my 4 children and thousands of others in this county against the odds that continue to be stacked against it by the state and by our elected local officials. You chided another member of this board for being a text and spend liberal, basically, a couple of weeks ago, as if being a liberal is such a negative label. Mr. Lashley, liberals have done nothing but fight for equal rights and fairness throughout the history of this
A
great
matter of
nation.
opinion.
Don't interrupt me, please.
Ashley?
Don't interrupt me, please.
Point
I
of
have
order,
lim-
don't
I-
we have a rule in regards to this back and forth?
I have limited time here.
I'm asking a question.
That is a good question, Mr. Sutton. I'll give him, 239. That is a good question, Mr. Sutton. That it is inappropriate for a speaker to address a commissioner directly.
I don't have a problem.
Yes, the public comment policy that was adopted by the Alamance County Board of Commissioners in September 2014, item 4 says, public comment is not intended to require the Board of Commissioners to answer any impromptu questions. Speakers shall address all comments to the commissioners as a whole and not to individual commissioners. Discussions between speakers and members of the audience shall not be allowed. So please, Mr. Tang and others, when you come to be heard, please address your remarks to the commission as a whole and not to an individual commissioner. So thank you, Mr. Sutton, for raising that point of order. You may proceed.
To the commissioners as a whole, liberals embrace the label. So if we are going to hurl that label around, please be aware that we thrive in that label. Votes may not change, but to the commissioners as a whole, I would ask that we please examine your interactions amongst one another on record. We have seen too many media reports of back and forth that I have been banned from per policy, but that occurs during your regular scheduled meetings. Even if this school budget plan does not pass and the support for public school falls short, I would ask and appeal to the county commissioners to please at least save me as a parent from having to explain to my children why the insults and churlishness are inappropriate for public governance. If nothing else, that is a very valuable civics lesson. Last year, a football analogy was used in referring to the school budget, how we don't have to go deep every time. We don't have to throw a Hail Mary every time, and that we can grow incrementally or improve incrementally. We're not going to get anywhere by picking up negative yardage on each play. I'm not a football coach, but that seems pretty elementary to me. My daughter insisted on coming with me this evening, even though she has an EOG tomorrow. It is a school night, so I am going to excuse ourselves after I have my time. I thank you for giving the people a chance to have a say. I implore you to continue to think of the best interests of all our students, preferably without doublespeak or cheap shots across the aisle.
Oh.
Learning at Grove Park has been fun for me because I get to use different programs and I have great teachers. However, my class this year had more students than the desks, and some of our smart boards don't work well. Also, our teachers also need more supplies. To all our commissioners, I hope that you will support the schools. I want to make ABSS proud, but I will need support from you as county leaders. I marched in Raleigh to ask for the same thing, and tonight I speak up to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Tang. Mr. Dooley, you're next. The next speaker who will please come forward is Courtney Doi, D-O-I. Doi. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name. I apologize for that. Should come forward. Mr. Dooley, when you're ready.
So here we are again, a year to the day of last year's budget hearing, and I do agree it does start to feel like that Bill Murray movie, Groundhog Day, where the thing keeps repeating over and over.
Mr. Dooley, if you would spell your name and tell us
I will.
your...
Yep, it's John Dooley, Jondooley. I'm a resident, I'm a taxpayer, I'm the parent of 2 kids, an ABSS, an 8th grader and a 3rd grader. I'm also one of the 1,600 employees at Elon University, where I'm the Vice President for Student Life, and I'm a member of President Book's senior staff. Once again, I'm here to ask you to lead and to think carefully about the impact of your decisions on the future of the county. As one of the major employers of the county, the university is deeply committed to public education and to this community. High-quality public schools are essential to a thriving community, and we are reminded of that every time we bring a new employee from outside the area to this community. The citizens and leaders of this community came together to develop a vision for what public education should and could be here in Alamance County. The leadership of the superintendent, the Board of Education, principals, teachers, and families, progress on that plan has been happening, albeit slower than it probably should be. Commissioner Galey, you asked for accountability data last year, and you got it. You saw that the investments made through the modest tax increase a few years ago yielded results. But now is not the time to take our foot off the gas pedal. Last year, this county board declined on the opportunity to make a strategic investment in the schools. Now, faced with the same choice again this year, the proposed budget not only doesn't move us forward, it sets us back and doesn't even let us continue the status quo. We must continue to make investments year after year if we expect sustained results. We've heard some of you say things like, now is not the time. We heard it last year, and we're hearing it again this year. Tell that to our children of this county attending schools today, that now is not the time. When is? Once their education is half over, or they've graduated, or their families have chosen to leave? Now is their time. Now is their only time. I understand that we can't afford to do everything all at once, but that absolutely reinforces the importance of having a long-term strategic plan and keeping up with annual financial investments in that plan. The people of the county want that. We want you to invest in our future, to invest in a high-quality education for our children, and to make decisions that support the economic future of our community. In short, we are asking you to lead, to do your part to bring this community's vision for public education to reality. At the university, we are proud of our success with our mission to prepare global citizens and informed leaders motivated by concern for the common good. I like to think we don't just make that happen with our students, but we try to inspire that leadership in our community as well. So I'm here tonight asking you to demonstrate the leadership and courage to invest in our public schools, just as someone was concerned about your future and invested in your education. We will keep coming, we will keep asking, we will keep voting, we will keep working for accountability until you all are prepared to lead on this issue, motivated by concern for the common good and the future of Alamance County.
Thank you, Mr. Dooley. The next speaker is Mr. Robert Villani. You may begin when you're ready.
Hi, my name is Courtney Doy, C-O-U-R-T-N-E-Y-D-O-I, and I'm a resident of Mebane. Honorable Commissioners, I appreciate the time to speak to you here tonight about the proposed cuts to the library budget. Many people are here to talk about education, and the library is a very important aspect of education in our community. In the current draft of our library's budget, it is less than last year, leaving the system with the least amount of money in the last decade to buy resources that our libraries need. Included in the $128,000 cut from the requested budget from the library is a driver for a bookmobile and the new mobile cafe, a part-time driver. Both of these were created by the library staff and put into place in order to make sure that all residents in Alamance County were served with library services. So they're trying to get access to a library within 10 miles of every resident in Alamance County. And these services are very necessary. Why do I care so much about the library? Well, first, I have 2 elementary school age children. and both of them were below grade level readers until we started taking them to the library and working with their Pause for Reading program. And now both of my girls are above grade level, and I think that's because of the access to a variety of books at the library and the services that they provide in the children's section. In addition, my husband and I are both teachers. My husband teaches middle school at Hawfield, and I am a community college instructor at ACC. I teach English, and so education is the bread and butter of our family. We are in the front lines all the time. And my husband and I hear stories all the time from our students about needing the library to have internet access to complete their homework assignments, and then also to have a safe place to study. And finally, I'm the current chair of the Alamance County Library Board. And in the past few years, I've watched the library staff research and plan the bookmobile and the mobile cafe. They have put countless hours into this, visiting other libraries, making phone calls, looking to see what would be the most fiscally responsible way to create these items, and also what would provide the best services to our residents. While they've worked diligently to fund the physical resources, they've raised all the money for the bookmobile, almost all the money for the bookmobile, and they are ready to go with the mobile cafe. The current budget cuts both drivers, which it makes these new services unable to go out to the community. These two services will bring literacy, job funding, and other resources to the rural areas of our county that need these services most. Many times I've had students unable to complete assignments due to lack of internet at home and a lack of transportation to a library. I've seen multiple research papers researched and written on a cell phone because they couldn't get back to the library to finish their paper, and their ride had to leave at a certain time. The library is now prepared to bring these services out into our community, and I hope that you will reconsider your budget right now and consider funding those drivers. If you walk into any branch of a library in our system and look, there are rows of computers, and people are doing one of three things. They're paying bills, they are searching for jobs, or they're working on education requirements. I had a few seconds before I came here, and I stopped at the Graham Library to gather my thoughts. I saw 2 former students, 1 current student. They were all doing work on the computers. Our residents rely on internet service from the library, and we did make sure it gets to all of the residents in the county. With the cuts to the library budget and the lack of support for the proposed tax increase, you're saying that education is not a priority to you, and I hope that you will reconsider that and look into providing more funds to the library, especially since it's only 1% of the total county budget, and it can make a big impact on education in Alamance County. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Boy. Mr. Villani is next, and then the person to come to this microphone is Miyoshaki Yamaguchi. You may begin when you're ready.
My name is Robert Villani, V as in Victor, E-L-L-A-N-I. I live at 529 Hillcrest in Burlington. Good evening. I'm Robert Villani. I teach here at Cummings. I'm a Burlington resident and homeowner. Thank you for the opportunity to tell you how to do your job. Isn't it something? In that we share common ground. I have a PhD, a North Carolina's teacher's license, 20 years plus experience at the university and secondary school levels, yet this does not stop anyone from telling any educator what is wrong with his or her profession and how to fix it. No Johnny off the street would tell Amy Gailey how to litigate a case. No plumber's apprentice would tell Eddie Boswell how to build a house. No third chair saxophonist would tell Bob Bird how to punch up a jazz standard. But in situations like these, we must extend our Christian patience and listen. And listen and listen. Everybody wants to talk about the money. ABSS wants too much money. We're not Guilford County, for God's sake. County Manager Haggood says we do not have enough money for this budget. Every 2018 candidate for this commission wants to campaign on his or her financial austerity. They all have their figures. They can all talk about the money. Money, money, money. We all want to talk about the money. But school systems do not run on talk, they run on money. We talk about the money because it's easy. Cold hard cash, dollars and cents, the great and good bottom line. We talk about money because it's infinitely easier than talking about the brown, black, and white students who populate our schools, who are the future county workforce and our future Alamance County citizens. We talk money because we cannot talk about our own anxiety about the children who do not look like us, who do not live on our county roads, do not go to our churches. Far too many say, "Do not hold me accountable for those children. They are not my children." Let me talk about the money. To speak of dreams deferred, opportunities lost, or dashed hopes, that is too much. Let me care for me and mine. Far too many in our county do not want to fund the future. It's a sad and untold story of our age. Many of the voters who have elected you to the county commission do not believe in the common good. I think our gentleman from Elon made that point clear as well. If they believe in the common good, it's because they are the chosen and they will vote for what is common to them. Who is the leader among us who will rekindle the sense of the common good? Will it be one of you? One of your fall competitors? We need to put the cash on the barrelhead now. Full budget, run the schools. We need to stop talking about the money and deal with our anxieties about investing in the children of this county. We need to think of them as well. Those who may complain that seniors are going to be eating dog food before the end of this year if we have this budget, that is the responsibility of Raleigh, and that can only add pressure to those legislators who have not funded or care for the elderly among us as well. Please don't take it out on the children. Thank you.
Jeff Tudor. Jeff Tudor. Is he here? Jeff Tudor? Is that Mr. Tudor? Okay, great. Let me be sure. Okay. You may proceed when you're ready. Please remember to state and spell your name and give us your address.
All right, my name is Miyoshoti Yamaguchi, M-I-H-O-S-H-O-T-Y. Last name is Y-A-M-A-G-U-C-H-I, and I'm an ABSS teacher who lives in Reedsville. Good evening. I want to tell you a short story about a girl who grew up knowing that she wanted to be an educator. That little girl grew up in a not-so-small city of Miami, Florida, in a single-parent home. There were days where the little girl would joke with her mother about putting flashlights by the door and finding where to shower. However, that little girl had 4th and 5th grade teachers who cared for her and would occasionally purchase school supplies with their own money. They were the difference in the education field. They were beneficial in the lives of both the little girl and her mother. Fast forward a couple years, that little girl was me. I teach in a school with students who have stories like mine or worse. I'm only a first-year teacher, but I feel as though I've already made an impact on the students at my school. Students feel comfortable in my room, and they know that they're in a safe place. But now enough about me, to get to the point of the story. Before the school year even started, I had to request a salary advance and purchase about $500 in supplies and clothing. As a lateral entry teacher, my wardrobe was limited and so were my supplies. I walked into a school with more leaks than we have buckets. Oh wait, I mean trash cans. And with minimal books and resources, as well as copy limits, because we are short on paper apparently. Our school family has grown accustomed to the limited amount of resources and supplies. But the issue is that now the students are noticing. That's not okay. They're concerned but mostly frustrated by the lack of support from the county. They say things to me like, why don't we have enough books? Oh, right, it's because it's our school. Why don't they fix that? Oh, because the county does not care about us. Words like these are what is driving us as teachers to speak up. My teacher spoke up for me when I was growing up, and now it's my turn to speak up for my kids. Enough is enough. Public education is the root to all other professions. We must supply our root with enough resources so that it can grow. Our kids are the future. Our kids want better schools. Our kids want to feel as though they matter. So why not show them by providing our school system the budget we deserve? I am a first-year teacher that will continue to teach as long as I possibly can. And I will also continue to fight for the education of my students. I forgot to mention something. Welcome to the school with the endless leaks, who also happens to have the highest growth for public schools in the state. Welcome to the school with one of the worst public reputations, where all the staff here is treated as equal from the bottom up. Welcome to the place full of chilling stories like my own, but welcome to this place that is a safe haven for those students. Welcome to the best of the best, in my opinion. Welcome to my second home, Cummings High. Thank you.
All right, next person on the list is Susan Gant. Susan Gant. She's not here. Okay, thank you. Lisa Marinas. Lisa Marinas. Hopefully I got that right. Okay, thank you, Mr. Tudor. You may begin, spell your name, and give us your address when you're ready. Thank you.
I'm Jeff Tudor, Tudor, of 1312 Branson Drive in Graham, North Carolina. I'm here with the Friends of the Library this evening. Our Alamance County Public Libraries provide an amazing variety of services to our community. Every year they serve more people, circulate more books, offer more programs to people of all ages, and touch more lives than they did the year before. But the staff are never content with their success, so a few years ago they started on a quest to serve areas of our community that are too far from a library branch to take advantage of all these benefits. They began to provide plans to provide a mobile internet service and purchase a mobile library, what those of us of a certain age call a bookmobile. This mobile library will be able to go to senior housing and retirement communities, provide access to a population that has difficulty getting to the library. It will provide Wi-Fi internet service to rural areas, helping students and parents access online resources necessary to complete school assignments. It will increase digital literacy to improve job readiness and health literacy to promote healthy living. And it'll provide opportunities in areas of the county that do not have ready access to them and reach a greater portion of our community. So the library staff applied for grant money, and they're raising money locally. The Friends of the Library have offered to help. And the fundraising is going very well because the people of this community support their libraries. But these mobile services need drivers, as mentioned earlier this evening. And this proposed budget contains cuts that would eliminate funding for those drivers. And it's a major blow to this innovative plan. The proposed budget actually cuts funding to a level below last year's. Our libraries have endured budget cuts and having to make do with less when funding was tight across the county. But these days, our local economy is much stronger. Now is the time to expand library services to areas of our county that have been underserved. I urge you to fully fund the requested budget for our libraries, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Tudor. The next speaker is Medora Burkskull.
Lisamarinus. My name is Lisa Marinas, and we will say that my address is 1723 Lakeview Drive. I am a real estate investor, nonprofit chairwoman, educator, wife of a humble teacher, mother of 2 beautiful boys that deserve way better, a mentor and advocate of the thousands of students I have taught in Alamance County. To Mr. Tang, thank you, because immigrants get the job done. Since I may not address you by name, a percentage of you, thank you for the dignity, class, and professionalism. That percentage is fit to serve. Another percentage seems to be a yes man, voting yes, 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 yes. Another one, I don't know, do we listen to Brad Paisley? The internet is forever. Your record shows that a percentage of you are unreliable and don't really show up for work. Some of you, I don't know if you are fit to serve. Your behavior is appalling and embarrassment. You could learn quite a bit from the students you constantly deny what they so greatly deserve. Your tone, your temperament, your lack of respect towards your fellow commissioners is the reason we have the First Amendment. Our right to speak out against our elected representatives is the cornerstone of democracy. I've watched you candidates from the jump. I considered voting for some of you, and I almost did based on the things you said. As in November of 2016, one of you said, supported public education is good because public schools are increasing the property values. I watched the people you serve beg and plead. I watched my own kid's pediatrician get up here and beg and plead for your support for our schools, only to watch you vote against what our students deserve, and then publicly blast and shame the very people that you lied to. In reference to the meeting at Williams last year, some of you took to social media to call the educators of Alamance County disgraceful, say they were not making the case to be treated like professionals. I'm sure you're aware that successful people invite criticism. A Nigerian playwright and Nobel Peace Prize winner said, the greatest threat to freedom is the absence of criticism. Now, winning is easy, leading is harder. I will also reference your football analogy. Let's walk through it. You said the ABSS strategic plan was like a game of football. Our goal was the world-class education and the end zone, the standards, the targets are our goalposts. Well, you know that feeling when your freshman quarterback of the team has been banking on all year, fulfilling the hype, they throw an interception, they cost you the game? That was you. As you said, on November 8th, you were trusted with this position of the people of Alamance County. Staying in line? I'm a Notre Dame fan. You made the rookie mistake of not listening to your coaches. It seems to me that you are more concerned with the people who you do not represent, the people who may move here. Your statistics of the 16% of the elderly, 16% of Alamance County also lives in poverty. All of these children deserve better. Please don't quote us on etiquette and respect when you cannot conduct yourselves in the way I'm asking to be treated. I will do what I do, and you do what you can do about it. You guys have the power. I would also like to share some facts in my 1 minute and 37 seconds. The 2016 State of the County Health Report, 55.6% of the students qualify for free and reduced lunch. I care about those kids. I don't not care about the 16% on their fixed income that I will not belittle you and tell you how much little that money is. Our per capita income is $2,300. I'm married to a teacher. I was a teacher for 14 years. Please, do what you were all elected to do. November is soon, and I pray for your souls. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marinas. The next, Ms. Burke-Skoll is here. Then the next speaker to come forward, please, is Tara Raggett.
Hi, my name is Medora Burke-Skoll, Medora Burke-Skoll. I live at 3673 Mevin Rogers Road. Good evening, commissioners. I come to you tonight wearing a few hats. I'm a science teacher at Eastern Alamance High School. I'm a parent of an E.M. Yoder student, and I'm also the beginning teacher organizer for the Alamance Burlington Association of Educators. Firstly, I would like to point out that we have some wonderful things going on in the ABSS system. My husband and I actually relocated from Durham to Mebane because of the small town feel and the quality of public schools. Our daughter is benefiting from a global education and now speaks an impressive amount of Spanish thanks to the excellent Splash program at Yoder. I have the opportunity to teach at a great school, EA, with colleagues who work tirelessly to give our students the quality education every child in this county deserves. I'm here to speak to you tonight in an effort to persuade you to please fully fund the 2018-2019 ABSS budget request. Funding the current expense fund would allow us to continue to meet the needs of our students. It would allow us to fund the digital learning initiative, bringing more access to technology and blended learning in the classroom. It would allow us to hire enough custodial staff that are needed to keep our schools clean and safe. It would keep teachers' aides and support staff in the classrooms where they are essential. As the beginning teacher organizer for ABAE, I hear many issues from our beginning teachers across the county. Many are having to get advances on their first paychecks or rack up credit card debt to pay for supplies for their classroom, or they live in fear of using all of their annual photocopy budget before the first semester is over to make up for the scant print or outdated print resources. I was lucky enough to be awarded a spot on a technology apprenticeship last year from ABSS. That comes with Chromebooks for my students and 2 years of training sessions on how to teach in a blended learning environment. I can tell you that there were hundreds of teachers who have applied for a very small number of these opportunities. They can only put about 10% of the people who apply for that program into it because there just aren't enough technology, there's not enough technology budget. I was lucky, like I said, because there are currently 3 teachers at my high school teaching close to 300 physical science students with less than 30 textbooks total for my whole school. 300 students, 30 textbooks. We share those between us. We are doing the best we can with what we have, but there isn't an educator in this whole county who doesn't struggle to try to figure out how to teach 21st century skills with 20-year-old textbooks and school supplies that we've had to pay for ourselves out of pocket. I'm currently working with my senior homeroom students on finalizing post-graduation plans. Many of them are choosing to stay close to home and pursue programs at ACC and Elon. These students are staying here. They will become our Alamance County workforce in just a few short years. You frequently talk about providing tax incentives to bring businesses to our community to create growth. I urge you to please recognize that funding our Alamance County Public Schools creates the resources those companies need. We are teaching tomorrow's workforce. Underfunding public education puts the goal of improving the Alamance County economic development in jeopardy. Please take a moment to hear us. Our students are an important resource. We are not greedy. We are not asking for extra. We are not wasteful. We are asking for a budget that reflects the realistic needs for our community schools. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker to come forward, please, is Allison Gant. You may begin when you're ready, Ms. Raggett.
A word of thanks to our Board of Education for their diligent work. Your continuous efforts to create and align budgets with the county strategic plan help to keep ABSS on the forefront of offering unique educational opportunities for our students. I don't want to get in trouble, so I will just say, hypothetically speaking, if there is a Mr. Murd who is a commissioner, I want to thank you for the 24-hour Diversion and Restoration Center. It is the latest example of your care for the county as a whole. And a one Mr. Moswell, thank you for supporting the strategic plan and the fact that it names public education as a pillar in this county. Much has been debated about the proposed 3-cent tax increase in order to fully fund this year's county budget. 28% of that would go to ABSS for required yearly operation and maintenance. This is no different than budgeting for your house, only this is for the operation and maintenance of 25,000 students and 1,500 teachers and staff. It's been stated the new proposed budget is about teacher salaries. This is a false and divisive statement. 1.2% of the budget will give principals and teachers a 0.5% increase in the local supplement. And I'll remind you, this increase aligns again with the goals of the county strategic plan. The truth is 99% of the budget is for direct student instruction, vast educational opportunities, and keeping the schools operating effectively. It's about paying their monthly bills. Education isn't the only line in the county budget, yet it is continuously the scapegoat used by a majority of the commissioners in order to keep taxes low, without ever acknowledging that the low tax rate continues to impede all county growth. In 1985, the tax rate was 54 cents. Hence, for 33 years, we've been fighting over a 4-cent tax increase. As the commissioners continue this debate, the population is increasing, county needs are growing, and we are falling behind in the competitive job market. This 33-year debate and lack of proper funding for decades is what led us to the need of a county school bond. The following are numbers based on the highest property rate this county might have. Not that it's going to have, but this is worst case scenario. At the 69 cents, a homeowner with a $100,000 house is currently paying $48 a month in taxes. An increase to 69 cents, which is the state median, will cost that household, not a person, the household, $57 a month. This is an additional $9, less than a movie ticket. A homeowner in a $200,000 house currently pays $96 a month. That household will have an increase of $20. This costs less than lunch at a fast food restaurant for a family of 4. FYI, there's a lot of real food which is cheaper and more nutritious than dog food. I know, I'm a teacher. I fed my kids on a fixed income for almost 20 years. Again, this is a county budget. This is for roads, parks, police, EMS, library services, county employees, health and human services. We were just talking about sanitation, and yes, public education. Yet we are about to close out another decade being told now's not the time, the county can't afford an increase, and treating our garbage better than our students. It's very difficult to believe the economic downfall of this county comes down to a household giving up one movie ticket or a family lunch out at a fast food restaurant. The county mission statement is as follows. Effectively provides its citizens with high-quality public education with public services, the tools for successful economic development, and a responsive, transparent government that supports the community as the preferred place to live, work, and play. As county leaders, the continuous refusal to adhere to the mission statements and the strategic plans is unethical and unacceptable. It's time to stop the political rhetoric, stop sending out false information on social media, and stop with the fear tactics. It's time to step up, adhere to the county mission statement, and implement the county strategic plan and fully fund the county budget. That encompasses everything and everyone. You need to step up and get it done.
Erica Johnson. Erica Johnson, if you would come forward, please. Is she not here? Okay. Then Mrs. Gant is the last of the speakers who has signed up. So just when the microphone's available, so if someone on this side of the room wants to stand and wait, and then when Mrs. Gant is finished, then whoever wants to come and follow up behind her, we'll just proceed like that. And please be sure to state and spell your name and your address. Thank you.
Sure. It's Allison Gant, ALLISONGANT, 2306 Hickory Avenue in Burlington. Madam Chair, Commissioners, tonight is about advocating, and not just about public education, but about our county. When we talk about a thriving, attractive, and forward-thinking community, that means more than just our local school system. It is a place where people want to come and to live and have all the services needed to be successful and thrive, where citizens feel heard and supported by local government decisions, where all are heard and decisions are made for a better tomorrow. Our own county mission posted on your website, as you just heard, and I'm going to repeat it. Alamance County effectively provides its citizens with high-quality public services, the tool for successful economic development, and a responsive, transparent government that supports the community as the preferred place to live and work and play. Our passion to gain support for public education is not just about more money, but about our community as a whole. It means support for our libraries, for the arts, emergency services, Department of Social Services, and our county government. Think in terms such as this: What is our response time for EMS, for fire, and for our sheriff's department? Can we do better? I firmly believe we can. Education is a driving factor for business and industry to come to Alamance County. This community, as you know, came together in 2012 and created the Vision for Public Education, soon followed by our strategic plan, both of which were supported by our county commissioners publicly. Our county strategic plan even has a pillar for world-class education that professes a commitment to world-class education to encourage and prosperous community and individual success for all from cradle to career. Yes, progress has been made on small levels since our strategic plan was launched in 2014 through increased funding, although we still lag behind for years of great need. Investing in our public schools is a must, and it must be at a level where ABSS can operate. Our budget clearly laid out each request in correspondence with our strategic plan. And each year, except for one, we have not been fully funded in order to implement this plan. We are now in year 5 and are losing ground with our strategic plan, which in turn creates a greater divide in our needs. We continue to have to cut our budget to just meet operational expenses. How can we say we're a world-class education in both the ABSS strategic plan and the county strategic plan, but continue to chase adequate funding? I truly understand that the current amount of available funds is limited by you. Our elected commissioners, you do have the power to change that. Simply doing what is right and not what has always been is bold. I ask you to be bold and trust that the citizens of Alamance County desire a better tomorrow. Let's take bold steps to ensure a better tomorrow for all of our children and our entire community. Please take another look and see if you can find a way to support both the ABSS strategic plan moving forward and other community needs. Thank you for your time.
Ms. Bost, Dr. Bost, sorry.
Angela Bost, Angela, BOST, 1712 Vaughn Road, Burlington. Good evening, Madam Chair and Board of Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of our over 22,500 students whose education depends upon the decisions we make together as leaders in our county. The class of 2018 will graduate next week, around 1,300 students. They started their freshman year when we launched our ABSS strategic plan. Next week also, the class of 2030 will finish their kindergarten year and begin the first year of their next 12 years with us, depending upon us to make decisions that will prepare them for careers that don't even exist today. Our strategic plan has changed how we do business in ABSS. It has been our roadmap to help us focus on the issues that are most important to providing a world-class educational environment for our children. Most often, you hear from Dr. Thorpe, who has successfully worked with you to take care of many, many issues related to Goal 3 of our strategic plan, our facilities. I am very grateful for your support in that area, as his role in ABSS and mine go hand in hand. Without exemplary learning environments, we have bricks and mortar. Fully funding our budget request that is directly aligned to our strategic plan is required to ensure that we have exemplary classroom teaching and instructional leadership, specialized programs, excellent teacher working conditions so our teachers don't leave us for neighboring counties that aren't as good as us but pay more, and compensation for building level employees. Our vision to become a national model for our curriculum and community engagement is already coming to fruition, as evidenced by over $6 million in grant funding being invested in our school system, and over $3 million increase in merit-based scholarships in just 1 year, and increases in the rate of learning occurring in our classroom each year. We are contacted more and more frequently by districts across the state and in other states to learn about and visit our schools. The recommended budget of $655,000 being considered is approximately $3.5 million below the Board of Education's request for current expenses and will stall our progress in areas that most dramatically impact teaching and learning: teacher supplements, principal supplements, student technology, and specialized programs. Furthermore, the recommended budget is approximately $1 million shy of our continuation budget and will compromise our ability to ensure that the class of 2030 has access to their dreams. We will continue to work diligently and use our resources wisely to serve each ABSS student. But if the continuation budget request is not met, cuts will be inevitable. Thankfully, we have what I believe are the best teachers in the state who rise to the challenge of meeting the needs of each student every day. Thank you again for the support you have shown us. Please continue to consider our needs, and we will continue to do our very best to ensure the return on your investment in our children is great. Thank you again.
Right. You may begin when you're ready. Thank you.
Good evening, County Commissioners. I'm Dr. Dre Bland, that's D-R-A-Y, last name Bland, B-L-A-N-D. I serve as lead pastor at First Baptist Church on Apple Street and also serve as president of the Interdenominational Ministerial Alliance. I live at 3485 Forestdale Drive in Burlington, North Carolina. I stand today to speak in support of public education, better funding of our schools, the amazing students and dedicated teachers and administrators of the Alamance Burlington school system. Yes, to make our schools great requires money. And that may mean a small increase in taxes, but this is an investment in our future. Taxes are not a penalty, but they are the price we pay for our roads, our public services, and for public education to prepare our children to thrive in the 21st century. For many children who live in the community around our church and who attend our church, education is the only way to an economically secure future. They have no trust funds and they cannot rely on breaks in life. Hard work and a great public education is the key to success. If we fail them in education, we handicap them for life. I'm convinced that Alamance County has some of the brightest, most talented young people I've ever met and are served by phenomenal teachers and administrators who are often asked to make brick out of straw. While the state legislature has a great deal of responsibility for funding public education, so too does this county commission. In November, my fiancée and I will marry, and we are beginning conversations about where we will live, where we will buy or build. While Alamance County has some of the greatest people I've met in my life, we are strongly looking at making our home just over the county line in Mebane or in Guilford County, Greensboro, or the Whitsett area. I've had the privilege and the ability to be able to choose where I want to live. But this is not the case for so many people. These are the people I speak for today. This year, we are leading churches and other community organizations to organize to make sure that we have elected leaders who will support our students, which means funding public education adequately. In the 5 years I have lived here in Alamance County, I have become disheartened by the seemingly short-sightedness of this commission that is willing to sacrifice our future to save a few dollars and to appease narrow political interest. Your decisions to save a little today will cost us all greatly tomorrow. Tonight, I implore you to make a bold decision for the common good. Let's move Alamance County forward together. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bland.
My name is Tom Scoggins, S-C-O-G-G-I-N-S. I reside at 3761 Mebane Rogers Road in Mebane, North Carolina. I've operated a business for 53 years in Alamance County, and as long as I can remember, paid in excess of $30,000 a year in property taxes. I'm here this evening for one reason, being I was asked in church yesterday by some elderly ladies to speak for them because they're concerned about having to pay more money. They're on a fixed income. They're responsible for their properties. And they're aware of the benefits to elders, but they're so concerned. Another reason I'm here is because I've been around the block quite a few times. I'm 83 years old. And I've learned that you'll never have enough money if you're working for money, or you think that money is the solution to your problems. For instance, come to school spending. If you think money will do it, maybe you'd consider moving to New York, who spend over $20,000 a year per student. And yet, New York is number 33 on the list when it comes to standardized testing, whereas North Carolina is number 23. Also, as far as the efficiency of spending that money, New York is 42 on the list, whereas North Carolina is number 11. Folks, we have a lot to be thankful for. And I'm here this evening to pay gratitude to your commissioners for holding the line. I'm grateful to our state legislature for holding the line on spending, who, because of the availability of funds, and that due to their handling of the money, have, for the 5th year now, given raises to our teachers. Look, I graduated, my wife and I, 7 children from this high school. We lost 2 of our children, 2 sons, to cancer. Of the 5 surviving children, 4 of them have their own business. One of them graduated from the University of North Carolina in Charlotte and is a licensed electrical engineer. We don't have a problem with the money. The reason my children graduated largely is because their mother fixed them breakfast every morning before they went to school. She made sure they had lunch money, and she was there in the evening when they came home to greet them. We need more mothers like that, more so than we need more money. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scoggins. Yes, sir. You may begin when you're ready.
My name is Rion Thompson, R-I-O-N, Thompson, T-H-O-M-P-S-O-N. I am an Alamance County resident. I live at 611 Atwater Street. I will offer a different perspective as far as the education in this county. I am happily married, and me and my wife regularly argue about having a child in Alamance County. Reason being, it's very regressive. You have this man, he's no longer here, but he had to come and has to, the people that put you in the seat that y'all sitting in have to come and petition y'all to release funding for the school, which is funny to me because y'all all seem to care about kids when it comes election time. Y'all all seem to make sure that y'all include that when it comes about election time. But then here we are at a budget meeting again and saying we need better funding for the schools. Like they have to give you grotesque examples of what it's like for a child in Alamance County schools. That should not be the case. This isn't news. This isn't new. This is relevant, and I'm shocked. I find it asinine that the community of Alamance County has to come before the commissioners and tell you that y'all are doing them a disservice. Not once, not twice, but multiple times. And then to hear the redirect, because that's the game, the redirect, is to find something that it's not about and try and make that about the issue. Frankly, we ain't really here for that. It's about the kids. It's about the kids. Then I'm going to need y'all to show it not with the speech, not with the Facebook post, not with the social media. I'm gonna need you to show up with that action, because that's what it's about. The action is what these kids need, and the lack thereof is why you have these people in front of you. So frankly, to retort this gentleman right here, sir,
Mr. Thompson, Mr. Thompson.
you can't.
Thompson.
I won't retort him directly, just like
Thank
I'm not
you.
retorting y'all directly. That's fine. We can't keep acting like this is 1965. We can't keep acting like this is 1977, 88, 99, 93. This is 2018. And you got people petitioning y'all to release funds for education? Come on, yo, you can't. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. That's frustrating. And then here's somebody with say something that is from way back, and still try and act like that applies to today when everything else has changed. Not here for it. Just remember, November is coming for all y'all. November's coming.
Please refrain from that. That's really not appropriate, okay? Mr. Henry, I believe.
My name is Patrick Henry, Patrickhenry. Do you want my address? 3114 Berwick Drive, Burlington. I didn't come here today with any remarks. I came here to listen and gain some clarity on the topic. I hear people talking about it all the time, and it's about time I came down and heard what you all had to say. I'm not here to, well, let me just say this. The boards that I've served on, just like you serve on a board, you have to make a decision at some point. Are you strategic or are you tactical? And from what I can observe, that this board has to wear both hats. The strategic hat. Some of you want to keep taxes low. That's a strategic move. But as I heard, and I was quite frankly amazed listening to the director of waste management, I believe is his title, the issues that they're dealing with waste. It's piling up. We can't get rid of it. And so you made a very strategic decision, tactical decision to extend the contract for 6 months because waste is piling up. What I see with this issue now has gone beyond the strategic. It's back to tactical. The waste is piling up in our schools, metaphorically speaking. Issues have to be dealt with, otherwise you're going to come up to a point where you're making emergency decisions. So I just ask this commission, this board, as you enter into your discussion, think tactically, because we've gone beyond the strategic. We all want low taxes, but we're entering into an emergency situation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. Okay. Yes.
My name is Tiffany Helton, Tiffany Helton. I didn't prepare anything. That seems to be kind of my gig. I wanted to just let this whole thing just kind of move me, and it moved me, so here I am. I started my teaching career knowing that I would never be rich. I grew up in Alamance County. My father was a sheriff's deputy. My mother was a nurse. I know what it means to sacrifice. I know what it means to serve a community. And I know what it means to make do with what you have. And these teachers do that every day. They're not greedy. They're not selfish. They are everything but that. When I started teaching, my largest class had 42 kids in it. I was 22 years old. I was scared to death. And I had 25 books. And I walked up to the office and I said, hey, I don't mean to cause a problem, but I have 42 kids and I have 26 books. Where do I go to get more books? And they laughed. And I was like, oh, no, that's not good. They laughed and I said, what do I do? Any suggestions? And my administrators looked at me and they said, Helton, just give us some time. They say we're getting computers. Okay. So I'm going to make this work for a semester, then we're getting computers. All right, cool. That was 6 years ago. I've applied for those fancy computer carts. I hadn't got them yet. And I've been working hard on it. The time is now. We can't continue to tell our children that more things are important. We can't continue to tell parents that their kids are going to have to do without. And though I agree parents are a huge cornerstone in education, kids do not choose their parents. And for the children that don't have a mama to make them breakfast every morning, for the children who don't have someone to sit at home and do their homework, we're picking up that slack every single day. And it's time. I'm not asking to be rewarded for that. We signed up for it. We're not asking to be rewarded for it. but we're asking for these children to have an equal opportunity at education because as Americans, that is what they deserve.
Yes, sir.
My name is Shawnee Cowland, SHANEECOWLAND. I live in Snow Camp, and I'm a teacher. Commissioners, as you may be able to tell, I'm an immigrant to the United States and have had the honor of teaching many wonderful students and working with fine teachers in several states and nations for almost 2 decades. I could talk about the fact that teachers' pay in North Carolina is one of the worst in the nations, and many students only have some of their educational supplies because of the caring nature of their teachers. I could talk about caring for students, ensuring that they are fed and safe. I could talk about ensuring that students have the opportunity to fulfill their own American dream. I should talk about those things, but I'm not going to because those words have already been said many times, and more often than not, they fall on deaf ears. Instead, I'm going to talk about money, because it's what some among you feel is the only important factor. Some of you pride yourselves on fiscal efficiency, but the policies you invoke are short-sighted and are resulting in the economic demise of the county. They leave a little cash in pockets now, deferring the actual debt down the line. By cutting investment in students and education, you are cutting the throat of Alamance County's economy. Like it or not, these students will be competing with other students from Orange, Chatham, Durham, and other North Carolina counties, as well as students from different states and even different countries. But when the gap between investment in education gets wider between Alamance students and their competitors, the results become inevitable. When these students don't get the jobs, they can't pay back into the system that helped them. What will happen then? How will the next generation of students get their education paid for if even less people are able to pay taxes, buy and build houses, and own their own businesses? Because that's what you're doing. You're stopping them from investing in the county. I urge you to begin to reverse the erosion of public school education in Alamance County by fully funding this budget request. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Brown.
My name is Barrett Brown. I live at 1562 Morgantown Road, and I'm president of the Alamance branch of the NAACP. It is the largest and oldest civil rights and social justice organization in the country, and we stand shoulder to shoulder with the teachers and the students and the parents of this community as we ask you to fully support public education. It is true that education is a ship that lifts all tides, and only if you invest in education will you ensure that we become a more perfect union. Some of you campaigned on education, and we would like to say to you right now that we are convinced that if you put your money where your mouth is, you can obviously live up to your campaign promises. Don't tell us who you love. Show us your budget, and we'll tell you what you love.
Hi, my name is Sarah Vincent. That's Vincent. I live at 706 West Davis Street in Burlington. We've been here for about 4 years. I'm a public school speech-language pathologist, and I work full-time at an elementary school in southern Alamance County. I do make my children breakfast in the morning. I'm also there when they come home from school, but in between I work 45, 50, 60 hours, both at school and at home, to help children who have communication disorders, and it's been the most rewarding work of my life. Before that, I was in advertising and marketing for about 12 years, and I said one day, I want to make a more direct impact, and I got my wish today when I had to watch 2 students take the EOG for 3 hours in a small, warm room, but I think they did their best, so it was very rewarding in the end. I want to take y'all back just a little bit to a different time and place. I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee in the late 1980s. During the time that I lived there, we were either number 2 or number 3 in per capita homicides in the entire country, more than Detroit, more than Chicago, New Orleans, depending on the year. The public schools were abysmally underfunded and segregated. My parents, who are both strong believers in public education, made the wrenching decision and incredible sacrifices to send me to a private school. I received an excellent education. It has allowed me to do anything I wanted to do in life, and I'm so thankful for that. Many of my peers also received an excellent education along with me. And here's the really interesting thing. They could have gone anywhere in their life. They could have gone to Princeton, they could have gone to New York, they could have never come back. But in the last 10 years, they have come back to Memphis. They've invested, they've planned for the future, incredibly, and I've been so surprised by this. They have supported public education, y'all, I never thought I'd see the day. Because of their shared vision, families can now send their children to Memphis public schools and expect a quality education. One local commercial real estate developer who I went to high school with, he could afford any tuition bill. He posted a picture on Facebook of himself waiting in line all night to sign his child up for dual language immersion at his local public school. This is unprecedented. Businesses are growing, people are moving to town, property values are up, all the things that we know, because people chose to share their blessings, share their resources, and their privilege instead of hoarding them. Really incredible. But we're not here to talk about Memphis, we're here to talk about Alamance County. And Alamance County can do better than that. I've already seen so many positives here that weren't here in Memphis when I was growing up. I mean, we've got a lot. But we're not quite aligned, our values and our money, I don't think. Our schools are supposed to reflect our highest ideals as a society. They're supposed to be places where things are orderly and safe and clean and happy and filled with excitement and learning. And for some kids, it is the only place in their entire lives that is like that. I start to see some long faces as we get to this point in the year because the kids have to go home for the summer and it's the TV, it's grandma, not a lot of food, not a lot of opportunities, nowhere to be outside. School is the one thing in their life that is positive. So at this point, I'm thinking schools are not places that need to be reformed by free market forces, performance incentives, supply-side economics. The funding philosophy should be based on the long-term greater good. It should be driven by the desire to provide the very best we have for the students who have so little. And this is totally within our power. That's the crazy thing. We can do this. It is doable, but we're choosing not to. We fund other things, our schools fall apart, they leak, they lack textbooks, they're overcrowded, we have minimal supplies. I personally have not received a lot of the things that I need to do my job, although I'm better funded than some. So if you believe that nice schools are only for the wealthy and the privileged and the families whom God has blessed, or kids like me whose parents made sacrifices, then let's just keep on going the way we are. Let's go on and admit that we just don't care if all children get a decent, adequately funded education. But if those are not your values, if you do believe in the transforming and uplifting power of quality education accessible to everybody, then please, let's just find the funding. Let's just get it done. Let's just do this. I think you will be amazed at the transformation that could take place if we just did this. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Ms. Vincent. Let us pause right now. It's 8:37. We've been here since 7 o'clock. I want to check with my colleagues and see if y'all want to keep going, or does anybody request a recess?
I'd like to get Ms. Simpson, and I think,
Well, we don't know if Ms. Simpson is the last one
Right.
or whatever, so does anybody want, do y'all want to recess? You okay?
I'm okay, but not for a long time.
Okay. Ms. Simpson, why don't you go ahead, please, and then we can all think about it for 5 minutes, and while Mrs. Simpson addresses the board, and then we'll consider again whether it's time for a break. Thank you. You may begin when you're ready.
Thank you. Patsy Simpson, 547 Woodland Drive, Graham, North Carolina. As I was sitting here, I was thinking about my weekend, and I had to travel to Virginia due to a death in the family, but also to take care of my elderly mother. And I was listening to the comments of one of the commissioners about taxes and the impact on the elderly. And it makes me think about a form that I had to fill out in Virginia. And I know you're not going to respond to it now, but hopefully when you do respond, or even at the approval meeting, you will address this question. I filled out a form in Campbell County, Virginia, to reduce my mother's property taxes based upon her income. which she's on a limited income of Social Security and very small retirement. It resulted in a reduction in her property taxes to like less than $100 on property that would have normally been around $800 to $1,100. I'm asking the question of you, do we have a provision in this county that will assist the elderly with a reduction in their property taxes based on their income? It is my understanding that is the case here. Then the next comment would be, why don't we advertise that? And why don't we assist the elderly so that we won't have the comments about elderly eating dog food? They can get the appropriate relief on some property taxes. I think we could do a better job in the county if in fact we have that. If we don't have that, I think we need to look and talk to our legislators or our attorney or whomever that may assist us. And the last comment before we sit down, I want to let everybody know I'm sitting in a broken chair over there, and I'm sure some of you are sitting in broken chairs. But I was also mindful tonight when I came, I made the comment that I wanted to wear my medical mask on my face when I knew that the meeting was going to be held here in Hugh Cummins High School, which I love so dearly. But having been a cancer patient not long ago, I was concerned about my health. So for those of you who are not aware of, if you would go to your immediate right to the exit door here, you will find a big yellow tape, and it says caution. And you know why? It's because you cannot enter the back portion of this building where there are classrooms and there are a teacher's office because of black mold. So as we sit in here tonight, I don't want to stay very much longer and hold you longer because I am concerned about my health, as I have been about the students here at Hugh Cummins throughout the year. As you know, when the air conditioning is on, those mold spurs just go throughout the building. And the band room is also to the right here, and those students have been subjected to that this entire year. So when you take a break, or at the end of the meeting, why don't you take a visit and take a look at what we deal with on a daily basis? Thank you so much.
Okay, what do y'all think? You want to take a little, let's take a 5-minute break, please. Thank you.
There you go. Works every time.
Okay, if we could please come to order and reconvene. Are there any other people who wish to speak tonight, to be heard on the public hearing? I believe we have a young man over here who wanted to be heard. Ms. Raggett, do you have something already been heard? I mean,
Yes, actually what I did is I Googled this, and on the Alamance County Tax Department,
Okay, Ms. Raggett, you've had your 5 minutes, and so I think that
just to let you know, there's a tax
I think
relief
you're out of
program.
order, and I'm
It
gonna
is
ask you to
called
please be seated, Ms. Raggett.
the Homestead
You've had your
Relief,
5 minutes.
and it allows elderlies.
We'll talk about that.
We're going to have,
It is on there.
we have our county attorney here, and we have opportunity for commissioners to make comments and responses. So thank you. Yes?
My name is Ted Moray. I use he, him pronouns. I'm an employee at Elon University, and I'm a member of Down Home, North Carolina, which is a local grassroots organization. My address is 1552 Granville Street here in Burlington, which just purchased as my first home. And I wanted to bring it back to the text that we used to open this meeting with the invocation. Looking in Proverbs chapter 4, starts off saying, "Hear, O sons, a father's instruction, and be attentive that you may get insight." And then verse 13 says, "Keep hold of instruction, do not let go, guard her, for she is your life." Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I believe that there was at least one other person who wanted to be heard.
Hello, my name is Parker Harris. I live at 675 Thistle Drive. It's Parkerharris. And while we're talking about the budget, I was wondering how much you guys are paid to be here. How much are we spending on the fire department? How much are we spending on I guess the thing that we're talking about really comes down to values and what is it that you value. I know this is something that we've been talking about for a long time, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better. I substitute teach at ABSS schools all the time. I also work on a farm all the time, so I'm in both sides of our community. And when I go and I sub, my wife's also a teacher at Haw River Elementary. When I'm there, lots of times these children, they don't have access to food. A lot of times the one time that they get to have in the morning, breakfast time, they get a really, really crappy meal. Real awful. It's horrible by any means. It's not, dog food. It's not that bad, but I think that we could definitely be doing better for them. That's just one aspect. We also talk about the computers that they could possibly be using. We also talk about the people who are there putting in the work, putting in the hours, showing that they love and care for them every single day, the teachers. So I think that when you're talking about, well, I don't know if we have the money, well, it really depends on where your values are. I also look around this board and I don't see the way that whenever I go to schools like Haw River Elementary or Sylvan or AO or Hillcrest, I see black and brown boys and girls. I see a bunch of white guys here, and no offense, but it's okay to be a white person. I certainly am. But I recognize that there are other people, such as my black and brown friends. So if you're unable to, for you to vote and recognize what their values are, and to, these are the people that you are representing. So November is coming. I would love for you to be the people to make the change that you've talked about making. But if you're not up to the task, we're going to make sure that someone is in your seat that's going to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anyone else? I want to be sure that everybody has the opportunity to be heard. And it looks like we have no more speakers coming forward, so at this time, we'd be seeking a motion to close.
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Boswell. Thank you, Mr. Lashley. We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor? Is there any discussion about that? Aye. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. All right. So now it is appropriate for the commissioners to take time to respond to the things that we've heard. As a point of personal privilege, I'll ask first for Mr. Albright, our county attorney, to please address. We had a speaker who, I think it was Ms. Simpson actually, who raised the question about the homestead exemption in North Carolina and tax relief that's available to elderly people. So, and oh yeah, Mr. Our tax administrator. Actually, I guess, Mr. Akins, if you could come forward and come to the microphone and tell us what happens to elderly taxpayers who are low income in North Carolina as far as their property taxes go.
Absolutely. So there is a homestead program in North Carolina of persons who are, I know it's usually a little bit low when I come up to the mic, persons who are age 65 or over or fully and permanently disabled, if they have an income of $29,500, actually it's $29,600 now, or less, are eligible. You do have to make application. It's not automatic. We don't have all the income information, obviously, to know who would qualify. But when someone does make application, the benefit is that the property valuation is either cut in half or reduced by $25,000, whichever will give the greatest amount of benefit. So if you've got someone, I know of homes that are probably worth $25,000, those persons would have no tax burden at that point, and then it scales upward from there. We do put it on our tax bills, and so every year when we present bills, it does present that program. There's an informational block. Also, we have it on the website. And we have made an effort to speak to some senior groups that meet at area churches. Now, it's been a few years since we have done that. It's just very difficult to get that out, which is why this is such a great opportunity. And I have taken note that the media are here and covering this event, so it would be wonderful if I opened the newspaper in the very near future and this was one of the comments that gets reported, because our senior community does read the newspaper. And anyone who can benefit from this program should. So I don't know if that's,
Thank you. And that's a program, or that is for the state of North Carolina, right?
yes, yes,
We,
very state.
and as I've asked the question, can we do special things in Alamance County for our citizens? And I was told that's not constitutional. We can't have special property tax relief just for Alamance County citizens, is that right?
It would have to be the state legislature.
How is it highlighted on the bill?
It's actually on the reverse face of the
Uh-huh.
bill. There's an insert box that gives some basic information. We want someone to know that the program exists and then how to get in touch with us. There are some ins and outs with the program. And if someone calls in, we can get them the forms. If they come in, we'll help them fill them out. Whatever steps they need to take, we'll walk them through that process.
The time frame of them being advised that they have that right, there's enough time for them to do it before the bill comes due.
Well, and I'll tell you what the situation is, and I'm doing this in a public forum, so it's at my own jeopardy. The law allows the Board of Commissioners to extend the deadline out through December 31st. We have historically done that. If a senior citizen comes in all the way to December 31st with the application in hand, they're late, and there's every right to deny them for that year and pick them up in the next year. But if they get to us by the end of the calendar year, we bring it on the consent agenda before this board to ask the board to extend. The board extends, and that person gets relief. We just feel that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, this is, we have a county program through, I guess, our IT department and our public information officer with producing some videos of different things, items of interest, and putting them on our government access channel. This would be a really good thing to do a thing about, a little video about. We did the grass clippings one, and I think there was another. So thank you very much. Does anybody else have any other questions about that program? Thank you so much. Okay, so I'll open to the other commissioners for their response.
I have one question. I have other comments, but I wanted to ask a question about books. I've heard books referred to tonight, lack of books, 3 times, and I've heard it at other meetings. Years ago, when I looked at the school budget, the state was giving the school system, local school system, approximately $800,000 plus per year to buy new books. What is the status of that now?
I guess, did you want to ask Dr. Boss that question?
Well, somebody, yeah. And to elaborate on it just a little bit further, I had asked about that and found out it's $800,000, $900,000 a year. It went to the school system. It wasn't from us. And that the goal was to rotate the books. In other words, come in and buy new books, and every 5 years buy new books, every 5 years buy new books. And supposedly $1 million a year was sufficient to cover it. And then I've heard since then the computer comparison that we've heard also tonight, that the school system was getting away from books, going to keyboards, computers. And so, you know, and I'm not trying to be negative, I'm just saying we're getting the fingers pointed to us as if it's our fault. And I don't believe that's the commissioner's fault, the county's fault. I don't think that's the case. What is the deal with the money now? Has it been restricted, taken back, or not given, or what?
Dr. Boss, would you mind coming to the microphone and addressing that, please?
To fully understand the implications of the comments that were made throughout the course of the night, because a lot of that is historical data. The textbook allocations that have been provided to LEAs over time have varied so much, ranging from less than $10 to over $15, that I can gather you some of the trend data that will show you that. But if I just told you what it was yesterday, last year, it wouldn't give you an adequate depiction to kind of demystify what you've heard over the course of the evening. Digital resources don't have a separate allocation in our budget. So what we have done is taken those resources and textbook resources pretty much from the same pot of money. So there's not a separate allocation for that. and then, of course, local funding that's we can use for any purpose.
Unless the format of the state budget has changed, it was a line item.
It's always been a line item.
Yes, it's always been a line item. The line item has varied so dramatically over time that in order for me to respond to the question around the things that you've heard this evening, I would want you to see all the numbers over time.
I'd like to see it.
Instead of, just the $16 from 2 years ago per student. And of course, in the past, there have been allocations that were much more than that. But it's not a consistent amount that we've gotten over time. And I would add the disclaimer that I'm not the finance officer.
I understand.
But we certainly can gather those data.
Can we get those figures? Can we see them?
Board approves.
Thank you.
From the state. Okay.
Okay, so, Mr. Sutton, did you want to continue with your comments?
Yeah, I think something has escaped me, but it's nothing unusual. I would like to say, Mr. Scoggins, that your reference to New York was well received, and also Washington, D.C. Had the highest, years ago, one of the highest per pupil spending levels in the United States, yet some of the worst schools in the United States. So that I took that comment. Oh yeah, I've seen it.
Please stop.
Okay.
Just stop. Please. That's enough. That's enough. That's enough.
I don't know the context of the complaints, but let me move on with this. Now, I don't want any of this to be perceived, let me preface it, as anything that is stating a foundation of saying we don't need to increase funding or that we need to decrease it. But these numbers are kept in Raleigh by a group, very nonpartisan. Let me just read you the first paragraph of the group, called Public School Forum. They've been around for over 30 years. It says, for more than 30 years, the Public School Forum of North Carolina has served as an indispensable and nonpartisan champion of better schools. We bring together individuals and institutions from business, education, and government to study education issues, develop ideas, seek consensus, and ultimately inform and shape education policy. They're not a John Locke Foundation group, nor a Heritage Foundation group, nor anything that could be considered to be conservative or liberal. They keep stats that are reported to them by the school systems of the state of North Carolina as well as government bodies. Now, and this report has been available for years, and I've always enjoyed looking at it and trying to analyze it. I think the numbers speak for themselves as far as our effort. Now again, what I'm saying is not going to make any of you believe that we need to do less or make anybody believe that we need to do more. It's just stats, and I believe in looking at them. Our state's got 100 counties. It's not like it's 3 or 4 counties that analyses don't matter. But when you've got 100 counties in the state where these figures are being kept, analyses do offer some trend, many trends. We are in a bracket, and our school system is in a bracket of 11 systems that are roughly our size, minimum 19,000, maximum 26,000. 11. Of that total, per pupil money is not a benchmark for the scientific conclusion as to whether you believe in your system or not, whether you believe in public education or not, or whether you love our children or not, and so forth and so on. It is merely a sum of the money given divided by the number of students, so that some look can be had. There's 11 systems that we're involved in. Of the 11, our per pupil funding level from the local level is 4th out of 11. There are 7 systems, in my opinion, peer groups, 7 systems below us per pupil funding. There's 4, we're 4th, and there's 3 above us. That's an interesting statistic. They have us rated, and I think you can analyze this all day long as to why the rating is what it is, but they have us rated as the 70th out of 100 in property evaluations that funding can be taken from. 70th. Our effort in that category is 37th out of our ability to take taxes from property owners, where our rating is fairly poor as far as what is available in relation to the number of students. Our effort is 37th. Of the 11 systems that we're one of, the 37th ranking is tied for second in actual effort. Tied for second. Again, I think it's an interesting statistic. They also measure what our ability is. And when they look at ability, they say, okay, what's your median income? What are your revenues, tax values, property evaluations? What's available to you? They look at what our ability is. Our ability, by public school form and their facts that they've gathered, 52nd. Our actual effort, what we're actually spending and giving from local coffers, taxes, fees, so forth, so on, 45th. We're above ability with effort. We're ranked 4th in ADM out of 11. We're 37th in actual implementation of what we can attach versus what's available. In my opinion, those numbers don't shed, again, I'll say it for the 3rd time, I'm not saying this justifies not raising the budget for school funding, nor does it say we need to cut it. But in my opinion, public school form could not be more credible in collecting these figures, disseminating them, making them available to the public. But in my opinion, very few people analyze it, try to analyze it. It's my opinion that that report does not put a dim light on what is being done across the state. We don't call other counties across the state and say, what are you giving to schools? Don't give them so much so we can only give them so much and we'll all look bad together, whatever. No. You've got 100 county governments, independent from one another, deciding on how they want to fund their infrastructure for education. And I would say to you that public school form does not put a bad light. Can that light be brighter? Yes. Could it be dimmer? Most definitely, and you know it. Those numbers do not make me hang my head. So I hope you'll try to comprehend those figures. I haven't exaggerated a single stat, and I don't think public school form does. I challenge you to go to the website of Public School Forum. You can pull up this report free. It's long, it's lengthy, it takes a while to analyze it. Now, there's a lot said about averages. Yes, we are probably below the state average when it comes to per pupil funding. But again, per pupil funding is what are you doing in your county, and they throw the number out there and it's all averaged together, and that's probably the worst analogy you can give. The smaller your system gets, like if you've got a system that's got 5,000 students, that per pupil funding tends to be almost double what it is somewhere else that's got double the students. Davidson County is a good example. You have Davidson County that funds their system $200 per pupil lower than us, or $300. Randolph County, the same thing, $200 to $300 per pupil lower. But in Davidson County, they've got Lexington and Thomasville. You take Lexington and Thomasville's per pupils, it's always higher than Davidson's. Davidson County, the county system. But you average in all these numbers. Some systems are big, some are small. I would say that's the least scientific analogy to say average. But when you sit back and look at 11 systems and you know what they're putting out for their students that are our size, and we're ranked 4th out of 11, and you see the millions of dollars that are involved, high or low, I can't think you can put a terrible tone on that. Does that mean we won't do better? I don't think so. I think we will try to do better when we can, and it may be soon, may not be. But that's all I have. And I've enjoyed hearing the comments, and good luck, y'all.
Well, I just want to say thanks to all the teachers that came down tonight and spoke. Had a privilege this weekend of talking to a teacher that no longer is in our system, and it's because of money. And I don't know what your statistics are on that, but I know we are losing teachers to other counties, and I don't know how we keep them here. They got to feed their family also. I feel for the seniors, as Mr. Scoggins mentioned, but we do have a relief for them if they choose to use that. I mean, if they're limited income at $29,000, they have that opportunity. So I know we're not voting on this, but I think Patrick Henry's comments about us being strategical or tactical is very appropriate. I think we need to be tactical as a board to figure how to move forward in this county, because we're going to make an investment, and those investments are our children, my grandkids, and I want to see them do the best they can possibly do, and I'm going to do what I can to make that happen. So.
Yes, I'd like to say something. Most of the problems that I've heard here tonight goes to these school board directors up here. The problem is not the county commissioners. The only thing the county commissioners are responsible for is the maintenance of the buildings. And all the other stuff that we give the schools, and I'm for one, I'm glad to give it. But I don't want to put everybody in the poorhouse giving y'all a raise or spending money on schools and y'all not taking care of the schools. That's all I say. And I've been here 22 years, and it hadn't got any better. Has not got any better.
Thank you. Bill, I couldn't disagree with you more.
Well, all you got to do is open your eyes, Bob.
There are tremendous things going on in our school system. I've seen them.
Doggone right.
I have seen them firsthand. I get out in the schools. So,
I moved there. What happened?
So I would like to repeat a couple of things that I mentioned at our last meeting when Mr. Haygood presented his recommended budget to us. Because my first reaction was that this is a fiscally irresponsible budget. And I say that because this budget is based on maintaining an arbitrarily and artificially low tax rate of 58 cents, the 28th lowest in the state out of 100 counties. And as Ms. Raggett mentioned earlier, the median property tax rate across the state, meaning there are 50 counties that have a higher tax rate and 50 counties that have a lower tax rate, is 69 cents, 11 cents higher than ours. So a budget is supposed to be based on needs. And what was presented to us was a bare bones budget that had been cut where department managers have come with so many needs. And we heard about some of them, a couple of people speak about the needs of the library and the benefit of funding the library. I've heard from several county staff about our wage system hasn't been looked at. Nothing's been done since my first year, my first budget in 2015, when we started the very small step of implementing the results of the wage and classification study that was done. In 2016, we couldn't do it because it was going to cost money. 2017, same thing last year. And so here we are again this year, not doing very little. There was just a tiny incentive program that was, on average, would mean about a 1% increase, up to 2%, but some zero, merit-based, but essentially nothing. And then there was a few positions that, just to keep the turnover low in some of the public safety part of our government, just a little bit there, but we have turnover throughout our county, and we're just ignoring. We're digging ourselves back into the hole again, where pretty soon we're going to be so far behind, we'll never get out of that hole. And this is where we are in funding our schools, because every year we don't want to fund what's being requested, and it's not like it's just throwing money at the schools, because what's being requested is very laser-targeted funding to fund the elements of the strategic plan that is going to get us to a national model of a public education system. And so we're talking about teacher pay supplements, just a little bit of an increase, and that was part of the plan to begin with. So, our Board of Education developed the strategic plan based on the vision plan that was developed before that one, which I served on that committee, and it was a serious plan. And the strategic plan is a serious plan, because if you know, the vision is about where we want to be, and the strategic plan is how we're going to get there. And the Board of Education went through a long planning process and came up with 6 strategic priorities. And because they felt like if we could accomplish those, address those 6 priorities, that we will be able to achieve that vision. And one of them is competitive compensation for our staff and the teachers. And another is special programming. And another is a facilities plan. And this is what we're hearing all the time about, the deficiencies of our facilities. But in spite of all that, we got some great things going on in our schools. But this budget does not meet needs, all because it's based on this artificially and arbitrarily low tax rate of 58 cents. And I said last week that if I were working for our county, I would feel like the wind would be knocked out of my sails, because it's such an insult, because it's not meeting the needs. And I also mentioned that I thought it was an insult to our Board of Education and the taxpayers that elected our Board of Education, and the central office staff, and all the teachers and staff that work throughout our school system, and an insult to our students, and an insult to our county department heads and our county staff, and ACC as well, because the ACC is being cut way below what was being asked for, all because of the just keeping that tax rate where it is. And last time I was talking, and it wasn't a recommendation, I was just using an illustration. If we could raise our tax rate, property tax rate of 3 cents, what would that mean? Well, it would generate about, I think the number is $4.2 million, which was essentially the increase of the ADSS, and not even thinking about, some extra funding that we really need for our own staff and our own departments. But I was just sort of saying, well, if we did that, what would that mean to the average taxpayer? Well, it comes out to be 3 cents on I think and Jeremy can set me straight if I'm wrong, but it'd be around, the average home is about $150,000, and a 3 cent property tax rate would be $45 a year, which calculates out to be $3.75 a month. So I hear about the poor elderly person living in their house, and they can't afford that $3.75 per month. But I think I want to ask, I'm in that elderly category. I've been on Social Security for a few years now, and I'm not poor. I'm not saying that at all. However, at some point, I know that I'm not going to be able to live in my house any longer, because we have 2 stories, and home ownership gets harder and harder as one gets older and older, and there's going to be a point in time where somebody's going to need to be moving in with a family member, or moving into a retirement community or a nursing home, or maybe they'll just die in that home, but at some point, that home's gonna have to be sold. And the question is, what's the house going to sell for? And Eddie, you mentioned last time about the importance of, from the real estate perspective, of a school system and what it has on the property value. And if a home is in an area where the reputation of the school system in the eyes of the purchaser of the home isn't as good as what it would be in a neighboring community, they're not going to pay as much money for that home. But the vision for our school system is that it would be so good that people would want to move here because of the quality of our educational system, and businesses would want to move here because of the quality of our education system. I mean, read it. Go to the ABSS website, click on the ABSS vision plan so that you know what the vision really is. But if that's the kind of school system that we have, then people are going to pay more money for that same home. My home in Guilford County would be worth a lot more than my home is in the city of Burlington. And so if my home value could increase because of the quality of the education system, because I invested $45 a year and a higher tax rate, and my home would sell maybe for $10,000 or $20,000 more, that's a pretty good return on an investment. So, I mean, it's just something that's just a way of thinking about the relative value here. But, so I was talking about a 3-cent tax increase and what we could do, and I also made it a point that, you know, we're concerned about the bonds passing and what is that going to do in the property tax rate. And so we already passed a resolution that can't go up by more than 7.88 cents. So we'll round that off to 8 cents. And if we had 3 cents today to fund operations and some of our real needs here, and we ended up with 8 cents, that would be an 11 cents. That would get us to the median. However, that 8 cents, that's the maximum. And we've been told by the financial consultants from Davenport that there are other opportunities to lower that 8 cents. And one of the biggest opportunities is to pass the sales tax referendum. So that generates $4.8 million a year, and that's worth, I think it was 3.6 cents on the equivalent property tax rate. So you can take that 3.6 off of 8, now we're down to 4.4, I think it is. So if we pass the sales tax referendum, then we only need 4.4 cents increase in the property tax in order to pay for the debt service on the bonds for both ACC and ABSS. So that's pretty reasonable. And if we did 3 now, that would be 7.4. We're still way low, way below the median. And there's a couple of opportunities to get that property tax rate increase down to as low as 1.9 cents. So, I mean, and there's some pros and cons about doing that, but it's very much a possibility. So we're not married at all to the 7.88 cents. So I'm just saying all of this is that this is doable, and it is time for us to show some leadership and invest in this community. I mentioned last time about before the Burlington school system merged with the Alamance school system to form ABSS, how the reputation of the Burlington school system was so good that people were moving to Burlington just because of the school system. I mean, people have told me this. My own financial advisor had told me that about 6 or 7 years ago, way before I even thought about being a county commissioner, and that he was really disappointed about how the reputation of the overall countywide ABSS is. And and the reason that the Burlington school system had the reputation that it did, and you know, it was ranked like number 5 in the state, was because we had leadership to make it happen. So we had the Burlington School Board, and we had the Burlington City Council. It was the City Council that was providing the local funding to the school system because it was a municipal school system. Well, that might not exactly be accurate, but it was the city funds, not county funds, that were supporting it, and it was the City Council that was bold enough and had the foresight and the leadership to invest in their own community. So when I said 3 cents last week, Bill, you asked Eddie, well, what would he do? Because he was suggesting, well, maybe he could go a little bit. And Eddie, you said $0.015. And we were really just talking about ABSS, not all the other unfunded county needs. Yeah, and I would like to ask my fellow commissioners, is there anybody on the board that's willing to do anything at all? And I'm willing to compromise, because I'll use my vote to get something, and as opposed to having nothing, no increase compared to what's been recommended. And I mean, I'm comfortable going 3 cents. I could be convinced to go more, but it takes 3 votes to pass a budget with an increase. So I'm just curious if anybody else is interested in doing anything at all, or does it just die because it's 3 against 2?
Mr. Byrd, I would respectfully suggest that that is an appropriate conversation to have on June 18th when we get ready to vote.
Well, okay.
Purpose, excuse me. And, I respect, we all have equal power, we have all equal vote here. But the purpose of this is to respond to the public hearing and the things that we've heard in that, and not to, that's
a good point, but let me say, in 2015, between we voted on the night of the public hearing, but between the time that we were presented with the recommended budget and when we voted on the budget, Commissioner Engel took the opportunity to try to kind of feel where each of the commissioners were and came up with a compromise once he kind of got input from the rest of the commissioners before that last meeting, and then he came up with some suggested changes to that budget that we ended up voting on. That was a 5-cent tax increase at the time, which was mostly to support our schools, to really get a jump start on supporting that strategic plan, which was pretty fresh then, and then also implementing at least a part of our wage and classification. So I'm just suggesting that if, and I'm asking maybe rhetorically if what you're willing to do, but if there is a sense, maybe between now and the next meeting, that we can, working with our county staff, if we did 3 cents, here's what they could do. This is what they would recommend doing. So much for the schools, so much for the county, but just to get the ball rolling. So we just don't come in cold next time and just, we got to do a little work based on what we heard, and just based on this discussion now, do a little work before we meet and vote on it. That's my suggestion.
Well, I have some remarks to make based on the things that we've heard from the public tonight, and I would like to take the time to go over those and to discuss those. It burdened my heart to hear Dr. Bland and Mr. Thompson talk about whether or not they would put their own children into the school system, because I have my children in the school system. I believe I'm the only commissioner who does presently have children in the ABSS. I have 2. One's about to graduate. I have another who did graduate in 2015. I vote with my feet. I support public education with my own flesh and blood. And, I encourage any parent who is thinking about what kind of education to give their child to put their children in ABSS. It is a great school system, and our teachers and all the professionals who work through ABSS do an outstanding job. And we should all feel confident that we can send our children to our schools, our public schools in Alamance County, and know that they're going to get a quality education. As a matter of fact, my daughter now is an intern in Washington, D.C. She is working for the House Homeland Security Committee. She's a global studies and public policy major at Carolina. Very proud of her. I'm proud of all 3 of my children, and they have a great foundation for their future through this school system. And I do get a little tired of hearing people talk about how bad the school system is and running it down. And I see firsthand what our school system offers our children, and the great leadership that we have had in our school system the last 4 years. There's been an implication a couple of times that we care less about children of color, which I found to be very disturbing, and I cannot allow that to go by unaddressed, because that is, can speak for myself, completely untrue. I care about all the children in this county, no matter their place of birth, their national origin, their ethnicity, their skin color, their brilliance, or their struggles. I care about all the children in this county. Someone asked, how much do we make? And I think that is always a fair question of your public officials. We get $800 a month to be a county commissioner, and the chair gets an extra $100. So that's the answer to that. I do want to take a moment to respond to what Mr. Byrd has said about, and I've heard this, I didn't hear this tonight, I heard it last year. There's an idea that before consolidation with the county schools in 1994, that everything was great in the Burlington City Schools, that you had a special city tax to support the city schools, and that people were moving to Burlington because the school's high quality, and that somehow that all started to change after consolidation. Now, I just want to emphasize that the people who graduated from the county schools before 1994 weren't some kind of knuckle-dragging idiots, and the children in the county school system before 1994 did not set off some kind of quality implosion that destroyed the city schools. In fact, if you look around you, you will see many, many adults who graduated from the county schools before 1994 and who have gone on to lead successful, productive, and satisfying lives, such as myself. I'm a graduate of Western Alamance class of 1985, such as my brother, class of 1982, who went on to graduate from the UNC School of Medicine in the top 10 of his class. Not the top 10%, but the top 10 people, and he practices medicine now in Georgia. School board member Tony Rose, District Attorney-elect Sean Boone, the owners of Living Landscapes, Jason Ross Auto Sales, the Domino's franchises, and a lot of other businesses in the community graduated from the county schools. The builders, electricians, and plumbers who keep our residential and business facilities in this county working. Businessman Andy Albright, who was just recognized as Boy Scout Man of the Year, and our county manager, Mr. Haygood. So, and also many of the education professionals who are working today in the public school system, not only in Alamance County, but in other counties. Sheriff Terry Johnson, Chief Deputy Tim Britt, and many other law enforcement officers. So we're sitting right here, and we can hear what you're saying about us. And if you want to build support for the strategic plan by hearkening back to the good old days when the education in Burlington was untainted by the county people, I don't think that that is a good approach. And my remarks are not intended to disparage the people of Burlington or the Burlington City Schools. I think that that was no doubt a great school system. But I would really like it if people would stop trying to conjure up images of how great the city schools used to be and saying that consolidation was what messed everything up. The county schools were awesome too, and awesome without the added tax benefit that Burlington had. So I've heard it over and over, and really don't want to hear that anymore. I would really prefer not to.
Can I respond to that? Just one comment very quickly.
Certainly.
Because, so I no way was denigrating the county schools before merger. My wife graduated from the county school, Graham High School. But what my point was is that in the city school system, we showed leadership. And it was different back then. So, I mean, it's not an apples-to-apples comparison. But the point is that with good leadership, you can get good results.
They had good
That
results
leadership
with the county leadership too, Mr. Byrd. So I think that that is a point that has been exhausted now. I had a question for our county staff. Mr. Byrd said that we cannot possibly raise the taxes to pay for the bonds more than 7.88 cents. And that was not, I really want to understand this because it's an incredibly important point. We voted, as I understood it, we voted to say that the maximum tax increase anticipated was 7.88 cents. And that would be the language on the ballot. But we're not legally bound by that, are we, Mr. Haygood? If it turned out that interest rates were rising or that that was not an attainable way to pay for the bonds that were issued, are we bound by 7.88 cents?
No, that was our maximum expected tax rate increase, so if situation find ourselves in on that, if rates are higher or any other kind of changes, that would dictate the kind of interest rates we could get. That would have bearing on the property tax rate. But based on the information that we have at this time, 7.88
That's right. So that's our best estimate, but we're not bound by law to adhere to that. So if it comes in more expensive, then we'll deal with the situation when it happens. Is that right? Thank you. I just want to clarify that because I was concerned that I had a misunderstanding about that. Okay. I was also glad that Ms. Simpson brought up the condition of the seed in here and then the black mold in the building, because to me, I really want to emphasize the importance of the bond, the school and the ACC, the Alamance Community College bonds that are going to be on the ballot this fall, and how vital they are to improving our education long term. And I wanted to take a moment to look back and kind of remember how we got here. We hear often about the vision plan and the strategic plan that ABSS has. In 2014, when the vision plan was being worked on, my recollection is that redistricting was not in the near future. Redistricting was not something, and building a new high school was not something that was being discussed, at least publicly, in 2014. Then we had a big tax increase in 2015, which Mr. Byrd alluded to, in part to address some long-term personnel pay issues with county government, and in part to fund the strategic plan. Then we didn't have a tax increase in 2016. Then in early 2017, before the budget was presented last year, after a lot of public forums and discussion, the school board did adopt a redistricting plan. A decision was made that the redistricting plan would hinge on increasing capacity in the high schools by building a new high school, and that ABSS would bring in 2018 a bond proposal to pay for deferred maintenance and to build a new high school. Then we had the 2017 budget last year in June. We effectively had about a 1-cent tax increase, even though we kept the tax rate the same. Because 2017 was a revaluation year, we could have stayed revenue neutral as a county and cut the tax rate to $57.44, which is more than a half cent. We could have cut taxes last year by over a half cent and kept all county and ABSS funding the same, but we did not do that, and we also increased the capital funding to the school system by another $500,000. So those two steps, staying at 58 instead of going back to the revenue neutral and taking $500,000 out of the fund balance and designating it to ABSS, had the effect of a 1-cent tax increase. And now we're in a position in 2018 to have these two bond measures from ABSS and Alamance Community College on the ballot, and they have a chance of passing. The property taxpayer can think, okay, 7.88 cents, I can consider, the property taxpayer has to consider, am I going to be able to absorb that into my budget, or will I not? What will the taxpayer think about a 3-cent tax increase this year, and knowing that a 7.88 cent tax increase is probably coming, or possibly coming, with the passage of the bonds? Hopefully, people will vote for the sales tax increase. It didn't pass before. It's been on the ballot one other time as a referendum. There's a lot of uncertainties there. And so when I come back to it and I think about it, what's my biggest duty as a county commissioner? And my biggest duty as a county commissioner to the school system is to make sure that seat gets fixed and make sure that black mold gets taken care of. To make sure that our children go to schools that are adequate in their facilities, that they have that they're well maintained, that they have capacity. I've heard many, many times about the overcrowding at Southern High School and Eastern High School, and that deeply, deeply concerns me. And so when I think about the county budget this year, I think about the priorities that we have to have in taking care of the facilities of the school system and making sure that the taxpayer understands that that the priority for facilities is going to be taken care of. So those are my thoughts. I think that to consider a taxpayer is going to say, okay, 3 cents this year and 7.88 cents next year. I love public education. I support it. I don't have it. I think that is a realistic and important consideration to make. That doesn't mean that somebody's thinking that, doesn't mean they don't support public education or the strategic plan. It's difficult to balance all the needs of the community. And I think the biggest need of this community is getting our facilities, the deferred maintenance, caught up and increasing the capacity in the school system. So that, I think, is all that I had to say tonight. And as far as, I was very much criticized last year because there was an impression that I had made up my mind ahead of the public hearing, which I think in retrospect is double standard, because we have commissioners who said when this year's budget was presented to them that they had already made up their mind as soon as they heard from the county manager that they were not going to support that proposed budget. But I was very much criticized last year for not absorbing the input from the public forum or the public hearing, and I'm sensitive to that, and that is why I would prefer not to take advantage or to have this opportunity to talk about if we were going to have a tax increase, how much should it be?
I'm confused, Madam Chair. Why would we not talk about it? That's what we're here about, is our budget.
Well, I thought that we were to talk about the budget on June 18th. That's what
We are, but what's wrong with Brian bringing us a proposal back and let's look at it?
Well, that's what you gentlemen would like to ask him to do. I mean, it doesn't take a vote to ask Mr. Haygood to
Okay, well,
redo that.
I think
mean,
that's
any
all
of us
Bob
have
was
the-
saying. At the next meeting, let's have a look. What if you went with 3? What if you went with a penny and a half? What are our options? And let's have input. And everybody will have that option. And if you've already made your mind up to vote for no increase, then you don't need to put in anything.
Well, I think that any of us have could have asked him that at any time now or in the last
So I have.
weeks.
I have asked him. Yeah. But it came back to us with a no increase.
Well, and I asked them too, and during my meeting with them.
So
I asked our manager.
it was already asked.
To present a budget with some options with, okay, here's a budget with no tax increase. Well, what would it look like if we had a 3 cent or a 2 cent or whatever increase? But
We've been
he saw
stuck on a no increase budget, and that's where we are tonight. But I think our next meeting, you're right. That's the one we will vote on what we do.
Mr. Haygood, can you maybe prepare those for the next meeting? Thank you. All right.
I'd like to say something to Bob. I covered this up so you wouldn't hear me cough. I apologize. I had a bad cold. First of all, if I'm not mistaken, there was a referendum. Steve, you may know more about it than me, but Burlington, they had a supplement. They got county financing. That's right. Okay, and then they had a supplement voted on, I think, in the city for the schools. So, the city council did what the public said to do.
And the city council appointed a school board.
Yeah, exactly, back then. And so it wasn't as much a leadership. I mean, the voters said do it.
Right.
Like the voters are either going to tell you yes or no on the bond referendum. Now, I lost my train of thought. As far as the, not unusual, is it? Going to my 50th reunion Saturday. Can't wait. Get down where some people like me. Anyway, bottom line is, you talk about our rate being fake or our rate being, what's the words you use?
Artificial?
Well, I said
Artificial.
it's artificially
Right.
and arbitrarily low.
Right. Well, I don't know that you would say artificial as much as it's low. You know, government is priced out at what you think you need to have to run it. Then you set your tax rate.
Well, that's my point. It needs to be based on needs.
Right, exactly. And if we have a county manager that feels like, and granted, there's going to be differences, like there's always differences. But if you have a county manager that feels like we can run this county on X amount of dollars, thus what the rate would be, that's not artificial. I mean, he's just sitting back saying, this is what I think we can do. And we either vote for it or we don't. So I don't think it's artificial in the least. Just because the state average is 64 doesn't mean that anybody that is 64 is getting any better government than us, any more efficient government than us. They just, you know, it's...
I absolutely agree with that.
Goodness. So, you know, you price out what you got to do or what you want to do with the majority of the vote, and then we do it. And then you set your tax rate. So it's not artificial, in my opinion.
Well, there's so much that was cut out of the budget compared to what was requested.
Right.
And
Always
you know,
is.
all budgets always come down to what are real needs and what are wants. I mean, I've been doing budgets for decades. And
Well, I've never
same
been...
dilemma every year.
This is my to some people, too many budgets. But this is my 21st budget. And we've had as high as 12 million requested above and beyond revenue neutral budget the year prior. This year's budget request was going to require a 9-cent, right, Mr. Haygood? Am I correct there? 9.2? 12.
To satisfy all the requests.
Oh, 9.
I'm not advocating to fund all those requests at all.
Because when I was in your office, we looked at the computer, and it, like you said, 8.9 or 9.2. And I said, is that what it would be if we gave everybody everything? How do you forget? And I mean that with respect. I like mine at 9 cents. Sir? 9 cents. Okay, that's what I thought. And so, you know, it's been as high as 12 cents, 10 cents. I mean, we've seen it all. So at a point, you have to draw the line and say, okay, what can we run this county on? We're running the county. Good or bad, we're running. Good or bad. And, you know, Mr. Haygood's put forth what he thinks he can run this county on.
For a no tax increase, so that's the underlying premise.
I think if he honestly felt like we had to have a tax increase to run it more efficiently, he would have put it in there. Craig Honeycutt put it in there. He put it in there.
He had a different board. He had a board that was
not
more
sure.
amenable to
Had a more
considering.
conservative board, and he still put it in there. So,
You and Bill weren't on the board then.
back now. No, seriously. You know, there's got to be a debate about it, and we're having it.
So what really irks me about a proposed budget is that it doesn't even fund the school systems on a continuation basis, just to take care of the inflationary costs, let alone fund some of the important strategies to move our system forward closer to that vision of being a national model.
Request versus what we're giving them, it is short, yes. Let me ask you a question now that we're talking. You sat back and saw what I said about how Public School Forum has us ranked.
I've analyzed that data. I do it every year.
4th out of 11. Is that just how do you perceive that?
Well, you said that was nothing to be ashamed about, and I would say it's nothing to be proud about. Yeah, we're not at the bottom of the barrel when you look at the full analysis that what's it called, the public school forum did. But there's one analysis on one of those schedules that I disagree with because it doesn't consider the value of the homes. It's just like my home would be worth more in Guilford County than it is now. So not only is Guilford tax rate higher, but my home would even be worth more. So I'd be paying even more tax. And somehow, that doesn't get reflected in the analysis, so. And it also doesn't consider the fact that, and I'm not gonna accuse, I don't wanna accuse, or make an accusatory statement, but suppose this county has underfunded our schools for the last 10 years, and we've dug ourselves in such a big hole that we gotta do a little more than the average, or, you know, move up that ranking in the public school forum analysis.
That ranking category for years.
But, well, I hadn't gone back and looked at how we compared years ago, but and why do we want to be satisfied with just being the average anyway? Why don't we want to be in the
All I did was quote a stat. All I did was quote a stat.
Yeah,
And I'll tell you something else very interesting about those stats too, is that when you looked at per pupil funding years ago, and we were dead in the middle, you had there were 14 systems that that you were 13 that you would consider a peer group. We were one, that made it 14. We were dead in the middle. And below us were 7 systems. There were 8 end of grade tests. They were kicking our butts on test scores. DPI had it. All you had to do is look at it. You know, we sit back and talk about Guilford. Yes, Guilford's per pupil funding rate is less than double, but it's almost double. We were beating them in test scores last time I looked.
There are a lot of variables.
Yeah, of course there are. And money's not always the total.
Not always.
Not always.
But in this case, it's needed.
Well, I enjoy the debate. I like you, Bob. I don't disagree at times. At least I could talk without coughing. That's good. That's a good sign. Anyway, and I got to say one more thing. I'm sorry, folks. We listened for an hour and a half, whatever. But you can get in and look at per pupil funding and go below where we are in ADM funding and look at the teacher turnover rate. Can somebody explain to me how the teacher turnover rate could be single digit in some of these counties that are getting millions of dollars less than ours? There's something going on in some of these systems that's not going on here. And they're just...
Oh, discipline.
Well, I think discipline's got a lot to do with it, yeah. And they're just as adjacent
Want
to...
your grades to go improve, put some discipline in our system, and it'll work.
You know, I said that we don't need to be basing our tax rate on other counties' tax rates, but just like you're using the public school forum data, you're kind of using that as a tool to test reasonableness, and that's the way and that's how we should use that public school forum. So it's not that we want to be in the middle, or, you know, but with respect to the tax rate, I mean, whatever we decide on the tax rate, we have to kind of put it to the test. Is it reasonable and comparable to similar counties? Because I'm not going to advocate for a tax rate that nobody can afford, and it's just way, you know, the highest in the state. But if it's reasonable and comparable to similar counties, then you know, I think that's a consideration. Not that we need to target that for our tax rate. We need to target our tax rate based on needs.
Well, I got to say this. I'm going to be quiet, I promise. I got to go home. I know that everybody wants to go home. But if you've got somebody kicking your fanny at a certain level with certain dollars, you need to know why. And that's what Public School Forum tells you. Well, as far as dollars go.
I think you ask some good questions.
Yeah, and then you go in and look at test scores, you look at teacher turnover rates, and you say, well, you know, why are they getting more done with less money? You know, and business does it the same way. I mean, Michelin tires, Goodyear used to take a Michelin tire and cut it up in Danville just to see how it was made. Why is that tire better than what we're producing? You know, I don't know. But all I'm doing is quoting stats, and we go from there. I don't think we have to be that we have to have a certain tax rate based on what Guilford has, what Orange has, or anybody. But I do want to know what 100 counties are doing. It's not like there's only 5 counties. The trends are there as far as disbursement and appropriations and taxation. There's clear trends there to analyze. Maybe not be fully conclusive, but enough to make you, like you said, ask questions.
Okay, we're finished with our responses on the public hearing. The next item on the agenda is the county manager's report. Thank you. And then the final item on the agenda is just above adjournment, is commissioners' comments. I think we're commented out at this point. So there being no further business before the board tonight, will be adjourned.